We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com.
Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. My name is Rob H., and this week I'm here with...
Lee Overstreet, pinch hitting again.
Joe Kluznik.
Yeah, welcome back. It's another three-man podcast with Tom away this week. Now, we must apologize. Last week, AV Rant took a little one-week break, and that was not planned ahead of time. And honestly, that was mostly me. Now, people who had listened to just our last episode might have assumed that Tom was away with the repairs being done to his house. He texted me on the Tuesday when we normally record. He's like, yeah, we totally could have recorded. Like, the workers were there, but they were up in the attic all day, and it wasn't really so disruptive that he couldn't have done it. But I had stuff going on, which I won't really go into because it's kind of like private health matters, not my own, as you can guess, family members. Yeah. But yeah, there was definitely a, let's just say, you can imagine if you got an elderly relative, someone in their 90s, has, dementia onset and memory things, and like samples are trying to be collected, and then, they're left alone in the room with the sample for any length of time, and suddenly they were like, why is this thing being kept in a container? There were problems with samples being
I feel
collected.
for you, man. I know. My mom's got her issues, different issues, but
yeah.
Yeah, been there, done that.
So anyway, I was busy last week, so apologies for that, but it seems as though most people were understanding that every so often an unplanned break has to be taken. And then this week, Tom is away doing another presentation. That one was on the schedule, but thankfully I was able to contact Lee and Joe, and they are both available at the same time on the same day, so here all three of us are once
Ta-da.
again. Hooray. So, let's see. What are we going to do hopping in here? Why don't we start by catching up just a little bit, because we haven't seen both of you in a little while. So, Lee, how are things going?
I mean, decent, I guess. We had a little Memphis vacation for a few nights. That was kind of fun. Did the whole Airbnb thing, visited friends we hadn't seen in a few years, and that was awesome. I got to see different parts of the town that we hadn't seen before. So that's been my week, and honestly, that was pretty good. I've been a high-strung guy lately, and that was actually, dare I say, relaxing. Did I almost relax and go somewhere and enjoy myself? Kinda.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
I'm proud of myself for not freaking out on a trip. So, yeah.
All right.
Good.
Well, did that involve any flying? You were done with all that?
That only involved driving. Well, it didn't even involve driving because of our magic car. So it was very easy to do. We just press a blue button on the screen and wait.
I got to say, I'm feeling for all the folks at the United States airports at the moment. It seems like it is not a fantastic travel situation.
I'm supposed to fall into that category on Friday night, so I'm really hoping they get things worked out this week at the TSA.
I mean, it might be time right after we hit end on this podcast for you to go line up, Joe, because that's not even that much of an exaggeration if you're talking about leaving on Friday. Speaking of which,
go there.
How are things? How have things been, Joe?
Doing well. Thanks for asking. I got down to Santa Cruz, which was just a driving trip over last weekend, but flying away on spring break with the wife next week. So crossing my fingers that things will go well.
Wow. Hell yeah. God, yeah, spring break. My goodness, all the travel stuff. I wasn't even thinking of that until you just said it. Holy smokes. There you go. Some context, folks. Not to mention, when I say not to mention, we actually won't mention all the other stuff that's going on in world news right now, because that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to maybe try and catch a little 2-hour break from all of that stuff. So, why don't I go ahead and introduce what the heck this podcast is. We are AVRant. We are your home theater and AV questions answered. And to get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at our email address, which is question@avrant.com. It seems to have been working pretty stably for the past little while. Have been no more email hiccups, although I'm still doing my best to try and email back folks fairly quickly just to let them know that we successfully received their email. So if you've sent an email like heck within the past month and heard hide nor hair of any sort of reply on the podcast itself or from Rob H directly via an email reply, if there's been no response, send it again, because something went awry and it wasn't planned, and we're not ignoring anybody on purpose. So question@avrant.com avrant.com is the way to reach us. You can find us on social media as well. We're on facebook.com/AVRant podcast, and we're on YouTube at youtube.com/AVRant. Don't have the podcast on the end of that one. Just nice and simple over there. And of course, we've got our website, avrant.com, in case you couldn't guess. You can find me on, just really one social media platform anymore, and that's Blue Sky. I'm at First Reflect over there. Can we find you gentlemen on social medias anywhere? Lee?
I am there on Blue Sky, and I suppose that's the easiest way. Lee Oversky is my handle there. That's probably the easiest way if you want to get to me in a normal personal fashion. Mm-hmm. I do more with some other accounts, but for purposes of AVRant,
yep.
Unless you want to talk a lot about electric cars and energy stuff,
some people might.
Yeah, you can find me on either X or Threads as Tesla Lusa.
Okay.
And don't worry, I talk about all the EVs, not just Tesla. I'm not one of those guys. But if you want to talk just a little more personally and more about this podcast, then on Blue Sky, Lee Over Sky.
Very good. And Joe, where can folks find you outside of this here podcast?
Still, of course, over on AVS Forum, JSKMDWK is my username. You can also find me on Facebook, especially if you're in the Sacramento area, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Alrighty. So, why don't we dig right into what we watched? We've got plenty on the list here. And you know what? I'm actually going to save mine because Joe and I overlap on, I think, or at least one of the ones that I watched for sure. So I'll just hop in when Joe mentions that, and I'll give my reviews of the final two nominees for Best Picture. Now, of course, the Oscars already took place, and we are going to have a little bit of a Oscars chat here because I want to chat about the Oscars. If nobody else does, maybe it'll just be me talking. I don't know. But yeah, I watched the last two, which were Marty Supreme and The Secret Agent, but I'll hold on to my reviews for that until Joe is talking about everything that he watched. So before we get to that, Lee, what have you been watching since we talked to you last?
Do you want to talk about the bad stuff or the good stuff? Or
all of it.
All right, let's start with bad. Okay. I did actually watch some stuff. So I gave up on Fallout.
Okay.
I watched the first season of Fallout, and it was really cool. But by the time we get to the second season, I'm watching a little bit of it, and I'm like, no, I can't anymore.
How many episodes did you get into it?
What now?
How many episodes?
In the second season, maybe just the first episode. Are you going to tell me it's going to get amazing?
No, I'm on 3 or 4, and I'm starting to stall out. That's why I'm curious.
So I'm right. Yeah. Well, because you can tell that they've switched modes now, and they're like, well, let's see if we can make this last 75 years.
Right.
And it's just dragging, and it's just sort of like, oh, here's another bad situation they got to get out of. Oh, here's some more weird bad guys. Oh, look at this monstrous thing. Look at all over and over. You can just tell. I don't have time for that. There's other better things to watch. So, but the first season was really good, so I'm sad.
Okay.
But I've learned now. I'm old enough and mature enough now to just turn it off and go, no, this isn't going to be good anymore.
I mean, the thing is, Lee, there's nothing else to watch, so you're just going to have to come back.
That's it. That's the crazy thing, man. There's so much. You can't spend a second wasting your time. Most of my viewing, is YouTube. It's just people doing stuff I'm interested in, sciencey, nerdy things all the time, So when I do watch something fiction or TV show or movie, it better be good. Yeah. So I also watched some little streaming sci-fi movies on Amazon Prime and HBO, and they were also terrible. So just as of last night, I didn't even quite finish something called The Beyond. We're talking like... Here's what happens. Heather, my wife, likes to, she knows I like weird sci-fis. So she will queue up in the watch later list or wish list or whatever you call it on the various streaming services. She'll queue up things when she sees stuff that she thinks I might like. And there's been times that was great and other times it's just so terrible, but we have fun with it anyway. This was kind of like that. So The Beyond, and then on HBO, I think it was 2073. Those are both no's. Skip both of those.
Okay.
The Beyond is so dumb. It's like low budget. That kind of low budget thing where they're like, well, we can't make it look like a real movie, so let's make it look like a reality show and we're interviewing everybody. It was kind of like that. And it's just there's no science in this sci-fi at all. It's just monumentally stupid. Why did they do this? why did they do that?
Not a new occurrence. That's been going on
Right.
since the advent of movies, but yeah.
It was kind of so bad that I probably will look at the last 20 minutes that I haven't watched yet just to see how do they sort of
Who
resolve
knows?
this.
Maybe it all turns around. It'll be your favorite movie.
No, it'll be terrible. And then the other terrible one, 2073, I think I could only do about 15 to 20 minutes of that movie. It was so bad. It was like, how can I put
How
it?
bad was it?
How bad was it? It's so bad. It feels like it was written for people who have been stressed out by everything on the news in the past 5 years.
Okay, fair.
And so like you might watch it and feel like that's what you're going through right now. But it was a little too on the nose with like society and news, and it's a future dystopian nonsense. It's not good. Okay. So let's do good stuff.
Yes.
I finally watched and finished Chernobyl.
Okay.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Highly recommended. Like super well shot, bleak as all get out. I mean, just so like, don't watch it if you need to be in a better place, right? I was in a pretty good mood and it was like, oh boy. And so well acted. Now I didn't recognize any of the actors except one or two. I was like, I think maybe I know that guy. And that's my favorite thing when I don't know the actors. Like I almost don't like big name actors in the show I'm watching. They just, you think of them as who they are. And so Chernobyl was so good. And I actually learned some science facts from Chernobyl.
Okay.
I even watched the documentary they offered up on HBO afterwards that had real footage from the area before and after Chernobyl. That's just so good. So if you never watched that, I highly, highly recommend that.
All right.
I would second that. It's premium programming from HBO. I had two of my sons watched it with me because they were so enthralled by the performances in that.
Yeah.
So really appreciate it.
And I think they did a great job in turning it into a series because, I mean, you can't quite do an exact dramatic documentary, right? So they had to take some liberties. They combined a bunch of characters into one kind of thing, a bunch of real people into one character, that sort of thing. So anyway, fantastic. And then
dramatic license,
but not any more than was necessary. So that was great. And the science was just accurate. So accurate and so very good. Then I remember last time I was on with you, Rob, we were talking about Station 11.
That's right.
Right. And I was kind of making fun of it a little bit. Like if you want to see what the post-apocalyptic era is like with theater kids, watch that. It got better. I finished it. And like the last two episodes, I was like, oh man, I have emotions. Oh, it ends. It's so interesting. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But so it's one of those where it's great in the first couple episodes, kind of drags a little bit in the middle, like depending on who you are and what you like to watch. And then all of a sudden it starts getting better and better. And at the very end, just a wonderful ending. So Station 11, I don't have sophisticated movie discussion and critique terminology to tell you why it was so good, but the plot just got better at the end and the characters suddenly sort of made more sense, and I just like the way they resolve things. So that one. Oh, and I really do need to go to the theater. I haven't been to the theater in years. But there's an Elvis concert film, and yes, I'm an Elvis fan. And there's Project Hail Mary. Is that there now?
Yes.
I need to see both of those.
I haven't been to the theater yet to see it either, so there you go.
I'm gonna have to throw some money at it for a change.
Oh yeah.
Well, so I'll jump in there. I have been to the theater, seen Project Hail Mary, saw it an advanced preview screening Monday night before it was officially launched on ScreenX, and loved it. Thought it was amazing. It was a very, very faithful adaptation of the book. The science is very good in the book, and they carry a lot of that into the movie, but they do take some dramatic license and shorten things, condense things a little bit.
Sure.
But they hit 95% of what I felt like was in the book, was in the movie. And it was beautiful. It was touching. It was exciting. It was engaging. My wife enjoyed it with me. Seeing it in ScreenX was really neat. A little distracting to keep having all the walls come back on again and then go back off and then go back. And I'm like, is it supposed to be like that? Because I had never seen a ScreenX movie before. But it's kind of like seeing it in IMAX where the aspect ratio changes. When all three walls were lit up and you were in outer space, it felt hugely immersive to have that 270 degree field of view. keep in mind, all your surround speakers have to be at the very toppy above the screen.
Right, yeah.
So that was a little bit different, but I think I recognized either some Barco or Christie projectors on either sidewall. But if you have not seen Project Hail Mary yet, go see it, read the book. I had two of my sons listen to the audiobook also. They love the movie. 2 thumbs down, which if you see the movie, it makes a lot more sense. Definitely need to go see it.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. The best I can do in Tuscaloosa is like the lowest end IMAX classification.
So I'm going to try and go back and maybe see it in XD at the Cinemark Theater. So,
Okay.
I don't think we have any of that. Our IMAX screen is like just a really big screen.
There you go.
That's all it has. It has no features at all.
So then next up on my list, we watched Mercy. This was a futuristic Chris Pratt movie about defending your life in front of an AI judge. About 90 minutes where this AI program, played by Rebecca Ferguson, it's judge, jury, and executioner. But they give you access to everybody's digital files. So you can look at anybody's phones, any records, any recordings, any camera video. And so this guy is a detective and uses this to try and defend his own life. So it was better than I thought it would be. It's actually pretty interesting from a technology standpoint and where the future might be going. Not as actiony, stronger action towards the end of the film. We watched it on Amazon with commercials, which is annoying as I'll get out. But we watched it in the theater, looked and sounded pretty good. Chris Pratt is literally sitting down for 90% of the movie, I think.
Okay.
In this executioner's chair trying to explain things to this AI bot. But yeah, it was worth a watch. It's short. It's like an hour and 40 minutes because he has 90 minutes in the chair to defend himself. And it's almost kind of real time. So yeah, that was interesting. Get on a little bit of Oscars talk. So did watch the Oscars.
Okay.
We'll talk more about that. Tried this year to see as many of the movies on the Best Picture list as possible. So saw Marty Supreme.
Yes.
Watched that at home in the theater. That was one of the streaming premium rentals. I think I paid $19.99 for that.
Okay.
Interesting movie. Timothée Chalamet plays someone who's obsessed with becoming one of the best table tennis players in the world. And will stop at almost nothing to accomplish that.
Yes.
Not really he does a lot of bad things to try and make that happen. I read one description that said he was his best promoter and his own worst enemy, which I felt was very true of the character.
Yep, fair.
In some ways, you almost had to admire the lengths he was willing to go to accomplish his goal. He was very driven and motivated, but he was kind of a sleazebag at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
It went in directions that I did not expect a table tennis movie to go when people are shooting at each other. And I'm like, how did this happen? But it's kind of, I think it's by the same guy that did Uncut Gems, if I remember right. But
So this is one of the Safdie brothers. This was written and directed by Josh Safdie, who is the elder of the brothers. Right. I'll hop in here a little bit because this was one of the movies that I watched within the past 2 weeks, catching up, making sure I saw all 10 of the Best Picture noms. For my part, I dug this movie. I did dig this movie. And this... it's kind of funny to parallel them, but like there are parallels here between Marty Supreme and One Battle After Another. And this is the movie that I enjoyed far more, dealing with like not the same themes, but a little bit of the same structure, almost. And it's funny because the character that Timothée Chalamet is playing, like, I think he's a mass murderer. Like that gas station scene, those guys didn't survive that gas station scene, true. I don't think. So I think he's an unintentional mass murderer in this movie. But it's these stretches of just like absolute stressed out, clawing tooth and nail to keep on going and essentially just get money at every single turn. This whole movie is about just clawing and scraping to try and put together enough money to get to his next place that he needs to be. And so it's just that level of stress, just go. Lots of people like basically yelling at each other, but all kind of played for humor, and then just punctuated by these crazy chaotic scenes of mass destruction that are going on. All played in a humorous way.
One massively bad decision after another. It's like, what does one bad situation? What will make this worse? Well, let's do that.
That was what made me feel it had a similarity to One Battle After Another. It was one crazy situation after another. Just go. Now, I mean, also got some well-known actresses doing supporting roles here. Gwyneth Paltrow and Fran Drescher, whom I didn't even recognize immediately. And I was like, wait a second, that's Fran Drescher.
You recognize the voice is what it was.
Absolutely, yeah. Odessa A. Zion, who I'm not super familiar with. I kind of looked up her IMDb and didn't know her, any of her previous roles. So, she I thought gave a great performance in this movie. I really enjoyed. She was like the girlfriend and becomes much more important in the latter part of the movie, but I won't spoil any of that. For my part, I really quite dug this movie. I enjoyed Timothée Chalamet's performance a lot, even though here's another character that I absolutely would not want to spend 1 second with in real life. But this movie, unlike One Battle After Another, there's some humanity to every character in this movie. Like, I really hated a lot of these characters, but I found something a little bit redeeming and a little bit likable about all of them. Now, I was very, very torn watching this movie because it wasn't on any of the streaming services that I'm already subscribed to, not yet anyway, which meant that I did, pay a fee to watch this movie. And I felt very torn about doing that because one of the supporting characters is portrayed by Kevin O'Leary, who is not an actor. You would know him from Shark Tank. He's the horrible guy in the middle. Unfortunately Canadian. It's really shameful that I have to say he's one of my countrymen. He's a horrible human being in real life. And so I felt terrible about watching a movie where I don't know why they gave him this role. Josh Safdie explained
he was very well cast for it.
Well, he just played himself.
Yes.
He just absolutely played himself under a different name and was able to do so convincingly enough. But yeah, I felt terrible because he's a horrible person who doesn't deserve any sort of acclaim or credit, doesn't deserve to be given any roles in anything as a real life person. In case you can't tell, I don't care for him very much. And so I felt very bad about enjoying this movie of which he was a part. Like there was the whole thing of, saying, oh yeah, we're gonna put him in the role because he's basically playing himself. And so we knew he could do it. I'm like, yeah, but there are also actors. And it's amazing how well-trained actors can portray people who they aren't in real life. You don't
the opinions expressed on AVRant are those of the individual hosts and shall not be taken for legal. Anyways.
So I guess I should be happy that I don't know who this is.
Sure.
You'd recognize him. What was impressive was the actual table tennis play. I understand Timothée Chalamet practiced for like 6 years to get to the level of play. He had like table tennis setups while he was filming Dune. In between takes, he'd go play. Okay. But he was the amount of the play was very impressive to watch at that level. So that was really cool.
I enjoyed this movie. Yeah. So
let's go to one battle after another. I did pick that up on one of the Kaleidoscape sales and watched it here in the home theater. That movie, I had a lot of trouble in some ways taking seriously because I couldn't tell if it was taking itself seriously. That's the way one of my friends put it, and I agreed with him. It's a interesting film. I agree with you that there are a lot of characters, and I actually draw more similarities between One Battle After Another and The Secret Agent, another movie we'll talk about in a little bit.
We'll talk about it in a moment.
But we've talked about this in a previous episode, so I don't want to go into too much detail. I didn't think that Leonardo DiCaprio necessarily was that impressive in this film. He kind of was a more monotone character. I didn't see a lot of change in him. Benicio del Toro was good, but played kind of a comic relief character almost in some ways. I think I liked the movie better towards the end, when we got into the car chase and some of the things like that happened, took a little more mainstream, I guess. But yeah, it was, I'm glad I saw it. I wanted to form my own opinions about it before the Oscars, so got a chance to do that. I had a couple of friends over to watch that movie, and afterwards they're like, "Oh, that was a little heavy. Let's watch something lighter now." So we flipped over and we turned on War Machine on Netflix to watch
yes.
Alan Richardson fight giant robots as an Army Ranger candidate. So it was loud and things blew up and people got shot at.
Did it blow up good, Joe?
It did.
They blow up good?
Yeah, but the foreshadowing in this movie was like billboards on people's foreheads. It was like, this is important later, you know. So I enjoyed it. He looked in a way physically miscast in that movie because he was so much bigger than all of the other actors and actresses.
Enormous.
He's a big dude. But yeah, so I liked it. You know, it was definitely a leave your brain at the door and enjoy the popcorn kind of a movie.
And made for Netflix. Specifically made for Netflix, where they know you're not actually watching.
And I believe it's already been greenlit for a sequel, so we'll probably see War Machine 2 soon.
That's if Alan Richardson doesn't find himself in jail after current events.
I did read he was cleared today, that he had it was a personal defense kind of a thing. So yeah, I'm glad he had a camera on his bike. Check social media if you really want to know the story.
Yeah.
That took me though, got me interested in, and I ended up rewatching Battle Los Angeles. Which is another U.S. military fighting alien invasions. This one takes place in Los Angeles. Owned that one on Kaleidoscape already, and really enjoyed. Again, the audio video in that is very good. Surround sound, stuff blows up good. There are characters with a bit more depth to them than in War Machine, so that was a fun watch. Unlike most movies where the military is entirely ineffective, at least in this one, the guys with the guns are able to fight back against the aliens, so that was a little bit more fun. What else did we... I watched some demo scenes and sent a post out about this, but you guys are familiar with the Matrix movies, I'm sure?
Oh, of course.
Recently, within the last couple of years, released in 4K with Atmos.
Yeah.
And was watching some demo clips from that and made a point that the highway chase scene at the end of Matrix Reloaded, I think, is probably the best demo scene in that entire trilogy. I don't really count the fourth one or maybe the possibly coming fifth one in that series, but the characters, the gunfight, the car chase, the motorcycles, the sword fight, the fist fights, the drama that all gets packed into this very short period of time with what are in some ways secondary characters in this story who aren't the chosen ones. So there is some more drama about they could actually die in this point. Sure. But I think that's, if you haven't seen that movie in a while, go back and spend 15 minutes watching that ending of it. It's fantastic. And then we usually, my wife and I enjoy our Survivor on a weekly basis. So we've been watching season. That. Yep. It's been a really good season so far. Yeah, you can crank them out. But we've also started watching another fun show called Company Retreat, which if you ever saw Jury Duty, is a very entertaining reality program where everybody in it is part of the cast except the one guy who doesn't know he's on the show.
It's a real life Truman Show.
So exactly. So Jury Duty was excellent, very entertaining. You saw everything that happened to this one guy with 11 jurors and a judge and plaintiffs and everybody else who were acting and had a loose script they were trying to follow, and playing off of him and improvising was hilarious. Wow. The things that they convince him are real life are hard to believe. But they're doing it again, but they couldn't do it with the jury. So this one's called Company Retreat, and it's about a young man who's a temp who gets hired to help the HR department plan and then execute a company retreat for this small hot sauce company. And it's ridiculous and funny and awkward situations nonstop, but really entertaining.
Okay.
That sounds pretty good.
It is
I might
fun
have
to
to check
watch.
that one. Company Retreat.
That gives us a couple minutes here to talk about the final of the Best Picture nominees for that I watched, which was The Secret Agent. And Joe, you watched that as well. I'll start us off here. So written and directed by Kleber Fijo and starring Wagner Maura. Maura is how he pronounces that last name. All spoken in Portuguese. This is set in Brazil. This is 1977 mostly that we're watching. And so it's right during the military dictatorship. And And yeah, my goodness, if you were to watch this movie as a double header with last year's, or I guess 2024's I'm Still Here, very similar threads going there, but from two different classes, which is a very interesting way to contrast the experiences that were happening here. Two different classes of people. I'm Still Here. They were a little bit more wealthy, a little bit better off, and so seeing it from a perspective of a family that went through it with that class structure. And here, I mean, he's middle class. I mean, he's working at a university before he goes on the run. But yeah, another one of these very realistic, very subtle performances. And it's a thing that I talked about before, which is like, here's a performance I'm watching where on the outside, he's cool and collected, and you're almost like thinking, God, I would be panicking a heck of a lot more than this guy if I were in his situation. And his son that he's trying to sort of reconnect with and go on the run with him, and then other extended family members, and then this sort of found family of other people who all are in danger from the military dictatorship, and people who have hits out on them for simply speaking up, which is really all that happened here. He had the gall to speak up back to somebody, and now his life is literally in danger. And so, yeah, you're thinking to yourself, God, I would be panicking a heck of a lot more. So on the outside, he's calm, cool, collected, but you see the stress and the fear behind his eyes. It's exactly what I talked about, how the really good actors are absolutely able to convey that without giving away, in an unrealistic manner that they could fool someone who's just glancing at them into thinking there's nothing wrong. But yeah, you get on the close up and you see what's going on in their eyes, and it's all there in the performance. So yes, I was really impressed with the performances in this movie, and just like I'm Still Here, I just really appreciated the a little bit unusual narrative structure. Doesn't just give you everything is tied up in a nice, neat little bow, and ends kind of like the narrative of the characters we're following ends very abruptly and without any ceremony, without any fanfare, and like, not to give too much away, but basically the important stuff happens off screen. We don't even see it. We get an indication of what happened, but we're not privy to it. But that is it's the opposite of a mistake. It's the most intentional choice you could possibly make, because the theme, similar to I'm Still Here, is how this is about reclaiming even just the acknowledgement that your family existed. Like that's it. We're just trying to claim that people who were disappeared existed. That's the goal. And to have it portrayed like this, where this is a long movie. This is a 2-hour and 45-minute movie.
I feel like everything was that long that was in the Oscar. Everything was 2.5 or more, it felt like.
But this one did not feel it to me. I was very comfortable following along, with this movie, just being a part of this person's life. And honestly, you don't even know what's going on until literally the halfway point of this movie.
100%.
At the halfway point of this movie, you finally got a little bit of an explanation of what's going on. And we're meeting characters who, we know they're going to collide at some point, or at least if this were a regular, straightforward narrative, they would, that they would collide at some point. But we're meeting these disparate characters, and you're kind of piecing together for yourself, who they even are, and what relation they have to one another, and why are we spending any amount of time with this character? There doesn't seem to be anything super important in this early scene, but, things do matter more. But again, all very intentional, where it's like we also get the perspective of someone at a much later date, a much later historical date, who is doing their best to try and piece together, just from the little tiny remnants of newspaper clippings that are available to them, and just trying to piece together what happened to this person. Where was this person? Who were his parents? What even happened? Where is this guy? That's really what's being asked here. But being, you get a lived experience in this movie as an audience member. You get a little taste of it, and how frustrating. And I can see the people who were like, what even happened? Like, tell me the ending. Like, it doesn't give you the satisfaction.
No,
and I can see people being upset by that if they're just looking for a straight ahead narrative, or because of the title, if they went in expecting this was a spy thriller, because it's called The Secret Agent, and it's not a spy thriller. He's not that kind of agent.
The first third of the movie felt like a character study. I mean, you were literally just following this guy in his day-to-day life. I felt like the opening scene was very Tarantino-esque at the gas station, where the cops were trying to shake him down. It had a lot of like tension to it. It was very quiet and underspoken. I felt like it seemed very 1977, and Lee, like you were saying with Chernobyl, I didn't recognize anybody in this, and they all looked very, very authentic. It didn't seem like these were actors. They all looked like people from that era, in that country, in that city, in that life.
That's the best. That's the best.
If I have a criticism of this movie, it's that I wish they had the budget essentially for more and longer external shots, because when they did show you just some wide shots just of the city and that, like, it was mesmerizing to look at. I mean, it was so well done. It really did, exactly like Joe said, feel like you were transported back in time. And I wish for pure eye candy reasons they had the time and budget to show me more of that, because most of the scenes are interiors and you're not getting a really good look and feel of the outside world. When they do give you those shots, I'm like, oh man, I wish we had more of those. Because seeing Brazil portrayed that way, it's like, it's a rough time, but they do, again, like I'm Still Here, that, like, man, some of this stuff is beautiful. Like, it's such a beautiful, beautiful place. So,
and I think the theme between both The Secret Agent as well as One Battle After Another is kind of corruption of power.
Yes.
That the antagonists in both movies are either military or powerful rich or elite, and what it's doing to the people below them, and how these people are reacting or acting back out.
Well, that's just the news. I can watch the news.
I think Hollywood is trying to speak to that. So
exactly.
Yeah. Oof.
Okay. Well, my goodness, we have chatted, and we've got more to talk about. But let's just quickly remind folks that this is AVRant, where you can send in your questions and have them answered. So question@avrant.com. And I want to quickly thank our listeners of the week before we go any further. Listeners of the week are people who have supported this podcast in some way. One of those ways is to come to our website, avrant.com, and on the right-hand side, you can click the Support AVRant link. That'll take you to PayPal, where you can make a one-time donation. Don't have to have a PayPal account. Don't worry about that. You can also support us financially on an ongoing monthly basis if you go to patreon.com/AVRant podcast and sign up for an automatic monthly donation. We have 119 patrons right now. That number's been ticking down, and you know what? We understand, and we don't blame anybody who's like, I kind of need to hold on to every last penny at the moment, and we totally get if that's the way you're feeling. But we certainly appreciate everyone who supports us financially that way to pay the bills around here, because it does cost some money to keep the podcast going. So patreon.com/AVRant
Come on, send us your
podcast.
gas money.
Sure, right, yeah. Not like that has gone up or anything. And then there are folks who just send us notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going. Didn't do such a great job of it last week, but we're back again, and with 50% more hosts than usual. So want to give our thanks to Steve, Adam, Leighton, Chris, Scott, and Jason for those notes. Thank you so much, and a big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions. And so normally we'd hop to the news, but there were the Oscars that went on, and so now that I've seen all 10 of the Best Picture nominees, I wanted to do what I did last year. These were the 98th Academy Awards, the Oscars for 2026, looking at the films that came out in 2025, and so I have ranked all 10 movies, and this is not in any way based on like technical merit. This is just, did I like this movie? And I thought I was really going to struggle to put these in order because I didn't have a bunch that were like way up top, and I didn't have a bunch that were way down low. When I give my rankings from quote unquote worst to best, please keep in mind that I think all of these movies really were well made, and I think all of these are worth seeing. But I've got my own personal rankings. So without further ado, coming in at number 10, the Best Picture winner, One Battle After Another, was my least favorite of these 10 movies. I don't want to watch it again, and I put it at the bottom on my list in terms of my favorites out of these 10. Number 9, F1. Like, it's such a cookie cutter movie. I'm sorry. It's just a paint by really, really well made, but it's just a paint by numbers movie.
Really cool camera angles, right? Like,
absolutely.
They talked a lot about using different types of cameras in different places in different ways.
Yeah, like I say, none of these do I feel like was unworthy of it being nominated. That's not how it goes. But if I'm going to have to rank the 10 supposedly best movies of the year, then something's got to be last, and something's got to be ninth, and something's got to be eighth. And here I'm putting Hamnet, which gosh, I'm like, that should be higher on this list, but for me, for my just personal enjoyment, I thought the performances were really good in this, but I had that whole criticism of like, I don't really believe this is William Shakespeare. So anyway, I put Hamlet at number 8. I put Frankenstein at number 7. I got a kick out of this movie. I said, I was smiling watching this movie. I just felt like Guillermo del Toro was inviting me to come and watch his movie because he likes his movie and he wants everyone to enjoy his movie along with him. And it made me feel good, even though it's a sad movie that, kind of plods along in places. But again, it's like this grand Gothic style, and I love the way it was shot. At number 6, I'm putting Train Dreams, and at number 5, I'm putting The Secret Agent. And boy, oh boy, those are a tie. Those are a tie for me. I don't know which one of those I honestly liked better than the other. Very different movies, but very touching movies. Both of them very, very subtle, very, very understated, but gorgeous things to look at. I thought Train Dreams should have won the cinematography Oscar. It didn't. I thought it should have. So yeah, that one really impressed me on that front. Number 4, I'm putting Marty Supreme, just because gosh, I enjoyed that movie. I got a kick out of it. I thought it was a hoot. Number 3, I'm putting Begonia. Like I say, I didn't love the ending, but I sort of get, I saw 2 ways that movie could end, and they chose one of them. So there you go. So I didn't totally love it, but I loved 95% of this movie. I really, really dug just the sort of head-to-head chess match mind games that was going on between the 2 main characters, and I really dug Begonia a lot. Number 2, and boy, did I toy with making this my pick for the best picture, but I put it number 2, Sentimental Value. I thought this had the best acting of the year, even though I couldn't understand what was being said. It was in a foreign language, but that didn't stop the performances. I thought Renata Reinsve, the lead actress in this movie, should have won for Best Actress. I thought she gave the best performance of the entire year out of everything that I saw. And that means number 1 was Sinners, which I didn't expect to be my number 1 pick. But out of these 10 nominees, I thought Sinners was the best darn movie of this year. But that's only because what I really honestly feel and believe in my heart of hearts was the best movie of 2025 was not among the 10 nominees. It did win 2 Oscars, and that was K-Pop Demon Hunters. It is the best movie of 2025. I'm not even saying that ironically. I truly feel it was the best movie of 2025, but because it's animated and because it was in theaters for 2 weeks just to be barely eligible for Oscars, they weren't going to dare put it in the nominees for the 10 best pictures of the year, but it won the best animated feature film, which it 100% deserved to do. And thank goodness EJ and her writing partners and her fellow singers won for the best original song for Golden. There's nothing else that was even close to that song. Now, and they had the guts to be like, wow, this was tremendously popular, lit up the charts, was at the top of Spotify for ages. So it's not as though this movie or this song didn't get its recognition in other ways, but they're like, it was the best darn original song. You just can't deny it. It's a fantastic song. So I'm so happy for EJ. And there you go. Yeah, that was the Oscars for me.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll just throw in my take on that. There's maybe 2.5 of these movies that I'll ever watch again. Okay. I'll watch Sinners again. I like F1. I'll watch that again. Frankenstein, I might watch parts of again, not the whole thing. Yeah. The rest of this stuff, it's artsy.
Okay.
Artsy. I just got to thinking, I haven't been to the theater in 7 years. I think it's been 2019. Which Star Wars was that in 2019? The last one? I think I saw that in the theater. Yeah, that's how long it's been. I don't even remember. And I watched this year's Oscars for maybe 15 minutes and went, yeah, looks the same as it always did. Yeah. But it did remind me that it's been 20 years since the first time I saw the Oscars in high definition. And we had just bought a new high-def TV, the Plasma from Panasonic. And I never will forget, probably 20 minutes in, it cut to a commercial break, and my friend Ed just blurted out, "This is how you watch the effing Oscars right here." Because it was so new and amazing looking. This is how you watch it. It's been that long, 20 years of high-def Oscars for me.
Well, let's crack on and let's get into the news. And you know what, Joe, I'm going to have you read out the first news story because you actually sent this link to me, I think, a couple of weeks ago when it was brand new news, but we haven't mentioned it on the podcast. And you know what? I haven't heard it talked about a ton elsewhere throughout the news, and I think it's worth mentioning. So, Joe, why don't you take our first news story? Barco
has signed an agreement to buy VerVent Audio Holdings for 135 million euro. You might not recognize the name of VerVent Audio Holding, but they are the parent company of Focal and Naim. Focal and Naim joined forces back in 2011 and have opened over 80 Focal powered by Naim stores since then. Barco is acquiring all of it pending regulatory approval in France, Belgium, and Britain, giving them a complete audio division to go along with their healthcare enterprise, commercial, and residential display business. Barco has partnered with Bose in the past, but clearly, once the acquisition is complete, we can expect to see Focal and Naim audio products bundled together with Barco display products in many future installations. So this really is bringing audio and video together. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. If you're buying a Barco projector, you're spending a big dollars on your audio video system. You might as well buy the speakers and the electronics to go with it.
Yeah, I think my only disappointment, I suppose is the word I could use, is that, there was a time when Focal had a number of speakers that were really quite affordable. That's still mildly true at this very moment, but my suspicion is that it's not really, I might be proven wrong about this, but it's my suspicion that it's not really going to be Barco's aim to bring Focal lower in price and more mass market. It would make sense to me that they're going to go the direction that Focal has been going anyway, ever since its partnership with Naim, and going to higher price points and more luxurious and more bespoke and going more towards that end of the market. So, I've been a fan of Focal's speakers' sound quality for a long, long time. And so I'm just a little bit wistful and sad that it's unlikely to be coming closer to the kind of price points that I'm typically looking at.
Yeah, and it was only about a year and a half ago, I think, that Focal introduced that semi-commercial pro-level in-wall audio speaker system, right? Where it was the modular stackable, where you can add additional drivers, subwoofers to it. So it makes a lot of sense that if you're buying that level of audio system, you might be looking for a Barco projector to light up a screen big enough to take advantage of that.
Yeah. So some pretty big industry news there. Lee, why don't you get into our second news story here?
Sure. At the 2026 Game Developers Conference, Microsoft dropped more hints about how their future console, currently codenamed Project Helix, will handle playing both Xbox and PC games by announcing that Xbox mode is coming to all Windows 11 PCs, starting with select markets, which includes the USA, in April. So they're just going to blend it, I guess. Xbox mode is exactly the same as the Xbox full screen experience that was introduced on the Asus ROG Xbox Ally. Is that how we say that?
Yep.
And Xbox Ally X handheld gaming PCs last year. So the Asus
what
ROG,
a naming
Xbox
convention.
Ally and Xbox Ally X.
That's
handheld,
right.
Yeah, handheld gaming PCs last year. Rather than the traditional Windows desktop, you get a full screen, controller-friendly gaming, UI. Let me read that better. You get a full screen, controller-friendly gaming UI that lets you access your games library across all services, including Xbox Game Pass, Steam, EA Play, and others. Again, they're trying to pull a bunch of different things together.
That's right.
It also provides quick resume for your 3 most recently played games, but Microsoft stopped short of promising that quick resume will work on all Windows 11 PCs.
Because it very much depends on your hard drive structure, and they don't necessarily know what's in that hard drive you're using that's running Windows 11.
You can't make a lot of promises about Windows 11 PCs. You'll be able to toggle Xbox mode on by holding the Windows key on your keyboard and then pressing F11. To switch back to the traditional Windows 11 desktop, you just press the Windows key. So there's 2 things I won't ever be doing.
So once that Project Helix was announced and they made it explicit that it was going to play both Xbox and PC games, there were a number of people instantaneously who made the assumption, or maybe just the wishful thinking, that there would be a singular interface, that there'd be a sort of pared back, less resource intensive version of Windows that would be running everything, but that you'd have a singular interface all along. And I was like, why? Why would that be their approach when they've already done Windows on a handheld gaming PC and they just had this Xbox full screen experience? And you know what? Xbox mode is a better name for that. That is better branding. Just calling it Xbox mode.
It's terribly confusing.
That's what everybody called it anyway. Nobody was calling it the Xbox full screen experience. Everyone was just calling it Xbox mode. So they actually went ahead and adopted that because it makes a heck of a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, maybe once again, I'll be proven wrong. Maybe it really will be the singular interface and there's no way of getting to the regular Windows 11 desktop. But like, if it's going to be able to play all PC games, or at least, you know, the vast majority of PC games that are compatible with whatever the hardware of Project Helix ends up being, it's like sometimes you're just going to have to go to a Windows 11 interface and install some drivers. Like, there's no way around it. You're just going to have to be able to do that sometimes. So I'm like, yeah, you put a button on the controller so that you can go to the Xbox interface that works with your handheld controller instead of a keyboard and mouse. But every once in a while, you just got to go to that stupid Windows 11 desktop to deal with other games. I'm like, yeah, so there you go. Xbox mode. I'm fairly convinced that this is going to be their quote unquote solution to the whole thing.
I think so. I mean, it only makes sense to have one version of these games that can play on everything.
And they've already been telling developers, like, don't expect any Project Helix alpha hardware to develop on until 2027. There was speculation that they're going to try and launch the console in 2027. That seems a little unlikely, but they're like, it's not impossible, because at GDC, they were just like, just develop your games for PC. Like, just straight ahead, develop the games you want to develop, do it for PC, and we're going to make our darndest efforts that it'll just work on Project Helix with minimal changes made. That's what they're going for with the next console, which means it's not going to be cheap. Project Helix consoles are not going to be $500. It's just, there's no way, no how. That's not going to happen. No
computing device is going to be cheap for a few years until we have a major bubble collapse in AI. Something's got to give. I cannot believe how much.
If there's a PC bubble collapse in AI, that isn't necessarily going to make other things cheap. That is going to be pandemonium.
That's the only way we're going to get cheaper computer stuff. I didn't say it was good.
Right.
That's what's going to bring the prices down, is something terrible. Am I continuing? Are you assigning questions?
You know what? Why don't I go ahead and read a news story? Because we got plenty to go around this week. Amazon Prime Video is replacing the $3 a month ad-free option with the brand new $5 a month Prime Video Ultra option.
Ooh, yes, now it's
$2.
It's rebranded, and you know what? They're going to be locking 4K resolution behind the new paywall. So that's how they're going to, try and get you to pony up. So if you pay for an Amazon Prime membership for the free shipping, as most of us, that's the reason we're paying for Prime. If we're doing so, you still get access to Prime Video's full catalog, but now it will only be in 1080p. It will not be in 4K. And despite the lack of 4K, you do still get HDR. And they've actually added Dolby Vision support to just the comes with your Prime membership version. So that's kind of nice. They've also expanded the number of simultaneous streams up to 4. It used to be 3. And they've increased the number of downloads you can have for offline viewing from 25 up to 50. So that's something, at least for the ad-inclusive version of Prime Video that comes with your Prime membership. You will have to watch plenty of ads. The number of ads has just been going up and up and up on that service, and they'll be in 1080p, not 4K. I mean, you got to have those 4K ads, but they won't be. Also, no Dolby Atmos for you unless you pay extra, but that was already locked behind the ad-free tier anyway. So speaking of the Prime Video Ultra, it is now taking the place of that ad-free tier, and it costs $2 more per month than ad-free used to. Prime Video Ultra will now be the only way to get 4K resolution. HDR and Dolby Vision are here too, of course, and Dolby Atmos is exclusive to this Prime Video Ultra tier. You can do 5 streams simultaneously. You can do 100 downloads for offline viewing, and it is ad-free. So that's the major incentive to do that. If you are upset about that $5 a month price, Prime Video Ultra will be available at a discount if you pay for an entire year all at once. So an annual plan, that is $46 for the whole year. That works out to $3.83 per month. So it's still a price increase over the ad-free tier, which used to be $3 a month, but it's not quite as much as if you go month to month. So yeah, that is all starting on April 10th. It is only in the US to begin with, but I will be very surprised if it doesn't come to every region in short order.
Have either of you downloaded for offline viewing or listening any media?
Yeah, I've done that from YouTube quite a bit.
From YouTube?
Yeah.
So
I would do it, Disney Plus, things like that for flights. Yeah, put it on my phone just so I had it there.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, I'm an old school nerd, man. To me, when you download for offline viewing, I do that with other software.
Yes.
I mean, other software allegedly, if I'm going to download for offline viewing, I can't imagine paying extra for that ability on something else. But yeah, I'm so close to getting rid of Amazon Prime generally. I can't imagine tacking on a few more dollars for 4K.
There it is. And Atmos. Don't forget, you got to tack on the money for Atmos too.
For my 5 speakers.
Joe, why don't you take our next news story here?
Sofabaton is discounting its older X1S universal hub-based remote even further. You can find it priced at 30% off right away on their Amazon listings, so that's $140 instead of $200. But they provided us, and thereby you, the AVRant listener, with an affiliate link and a code that will get you 35% off, which is $70, making the price $130, plus that gives you enough money for gas. So check out our show notes for the affiliate link, and the new discount code is TomX1S35.
Yeah, we had a discount code before, but that was only 25% off. Now it's up to 35%. It is Tom X1S35. Tom, Andrew, is not even here this week, but that's okay. We're still using his name as the promo code. So Tom X1S35, and yeah, we'll have it. It does have to be specifically through the link that's provided, because you just go to the regular listing on Amazon that is already priced at $140, and you put in the code, is not going to take an additional 35% off of that already discounted price. So yeah, you have to go through our link and then use Tom X1S35. But you can get it for $130 if you want an X1S, and it's still a pretty darn good universal hub-based remote. All right, Lee, our last news story for this week.
Sure. If you follow gaming news or just NVIDIA news whatsoever, you couldn't avoid all the hubbub following the announcement and early demonstrations of NVIDIA's new DLSS Deep Learning Super Sampling 5 real-time neural rendering with photoreal lighting and materials.
That is how they describe it. Yeah,
that is. For those not already familiar, to summarize and generalize very quickly, DLSS allows for games and graphics to be natively rendered at a lower resolution, at a lower frame rate, with less graphical detail and less complicated lighting, which you've always been able to do by just turning settings down in games.
Yes.
But then, via machine learning algorithms, DLSS upscales resolution, interpolates new frames, boosts texture details, and takes its best guess as what actual ray traced and path traced lighting would have looked like.
Yeah.
Had you actually calculated it. Some gamers criticized the use of DLSS for creating fake frames, and I remind those people that games are fake. And doing things that sometimes look like edge enhancement and AI upscaling. But in general, it was seen as a useful option for allowing lower priced graphics cards to still play the most up-to-date games without looking super blurry and choppy, which is especially good since you're never going to be able to afford a new video card until the great economic collapse comes.
That's right.
But DLSS5 has seemingly gone in a whole new direction. To be clear, NVIDIA's marketing people and its CEO are screaming at anybody who will listen that it is still optional and that game developers are on board and like DLSS5. They super pinky swear that they like it. But the promotional images that are prominently shown on NVIDIA's own website and pop up in the NVIDIA settings app have sparked major backlash for looking 100% like stereotypical AI filters that yassify every character's face and apparently hate all shadows and anything that doesn't conform to its pre-trained ideals of photorealistic beauty. So it's making faces look like its own ideal of beauty.
I mean, that is the most obvious and glaring thing, and I've been showing some images as we're going along. Yeah, I'll let you keep on reading because these kind of go along with it, but yeah, we'll comment in a moment here.
It also took two RTX 5090 GPUs working together to do the demo, which you can't afford, and it still couldn't figure out things like moire on a shirt or how to render a moving soccer ball without it turning into a warped blobby mess. But NVIDIA has been saying that all of the critics and haters are wrong, so we couldn't help but want to weigh in just a little for fun.
Yup. I don't know how much either of you have been looking at this thing, but it was absolutely unavoidable in the places that I'm looking online. So, I mean, I'm just going to get... So, I mean, yeah, if you've been looking at the images, if you haven't already seen them, and, I mean, these are prominently displayed on NVIDIA's own website, and they even throw them in your face if you already have an NVIDIA card of any sort in their own NVIDIA app. They're like, hey, look at DLSS5. It's not available yet. It's not going to be available for quite some time, but they're already making you look at it. It's like... these are not the same people anymore. I mean, one looks like was made by, a computer. A graphic card doesn't look like a real person. The other version maybe looks closer to photorealistic, but it really just looks like an AI face. And then the most egregious of all, I mean, the one that everyone has seen, it's almost impossible to avoid if you've been online, but what they did to Grace in Resident Evil Requiem, I mean, yeah, you can say they turned it into a aesthetically pretty AI woman's face, but it is not the same character. Where did the makeup come from? Because as people have said, in this very scene, which is from early on in the game, like she is like going back to the apartment where her mother was killed. She's investigating it. It's raining outside. DLSS5 comes on. It's like, oh, well, the rain is gone for one thing because, that looked ugly. And like, where did the shadow from the light in the store shop that's falling on the ice machine go? I mean, it's gone. Right. Everything is just brightened up, lightened up. The rain is gone. And all of a sudden, Grace is wearing makeup and also looks like a completely different person. Also, they just assumed that apparently any person who's blonde must have actual dark hair and dyed her hair because she's got roots all of a sudden. It's like, it's not just a lighting choice. This is not just, this is what ray tracing would have looked like if we could have done it. This is an AI face. Right. Like there is no other way that this happens. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, some of the other images, like getting away from the faces, because those are so off-putting and starkly obvious, where they're just like, it's just an Instagram AI filter. This technology wasn't ready yet. They're running off of 250-90s for Pete's sake. And as soon as anything was in motion, if you get back to the soccer ball and stuff, like they freeze frame it, show you what DLSS on looks like versus off, so that you ooh and awe at the, I guess, lack of shadows and the strange AI faces. But as soon as anything moved, it was just like, oh, it can't handle motion yet. So
did it give that soccer player better abs?
No, that's just Moire on his shirt that went crazy with the processing when it was turned
wild.
on. But looking at the
just
parts,
trading one thing that's not real for a worse thing that's not real.
But looking at the scenes where there weren't faces, I'm like, it looks better with it off.
Yeah,
like it just just looks like you brought this into like the Windows photo viewer and use that automatic enhance tool on it.
It looks like every real estate listing in the past few years where HDR is on and edge enhancement is on. And
again, like, where did the shadows go? Like, look above the arch on this image if you're watching on YouTube. Like, right above the arch, there's a prominent, deep, dark shadow. Right. And then DLSS5 comes along. It's gone. Like, we don't like shadows. The shadow's just gone. It's erased.
It's a cloudy day every day now.
Yes, DLSS5 apparently like brings 2 additional suns into our solar system from various angles just to make sure that nothing is ever poorly lit. I mean, the shot of the fruit on the table is maybe the one image where I think it actually did a pretty good job of being like, that does actually look a bit more like real life. Like the lighting looks a bit more realistic with it on versus off. But again, it just brightened everything up. It's almost just someone just grabbed the contrast control.
See, I think the still life with the food only looks better because it's food and our brain sees brighter colored food, which looks yummier.
Right.
That's it. So, and that's what AI does, is things that appeal to human eyes, and it's trained on examples of zillions of things. So,
but like it also, like, I don't know if it was looking at the, like the Gringotts character beside this character from Hogwarts and was like, oh, well, if one of them is old, then the other one must be old, because it aged him by about 15 years. This is supposed to be a student coming to Hogwarts, and now he's 30 years old with DLSS5 on.
Right. So, it does look maybe arguably more like a person with the kind of
like this, like the original thing does not look like photorealism, right? You're like, that is a computer character. There is no question that is a computer character. And with the DLSS5 on, you're like, if you glanced at it quickly, your eyes just scanned by it, you could be like, oh yeah, then maybe that was a real person. It has that sort of, but I mean, like, again, the lighting just completely, where did the light on the left side of his face come from? That's coming from nowhere.
Turned a AI spotlight on just off camera. I don't know, man.
But I mean, so look, yes, this can be tuned, it can be adjusted, all kinds of things. But I'm like, these are NVIDIA is like cramming these into everybody's eye holes. It's them doing it. It's not people like going out and finding these examples and like unearthing them. NVIDIA's like, look at what we're doing. This is the future of gaming. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious.
Because there has to be a reason to use their AI products so that the economic coming collapse doesn't happen. Come on, Rob, get with the program. Use the
Also,
AI.
I just got to say it.
It's all a circular funding thing anyway, isn't it?
I just got to say it. They changed the women's faces considerably more than the men's. Consistently, the women's faces all look like completely different people. The men's faces look different too, but not quite to the same extent. I'm like, gee, gosh, I wonder if there's some kind of bias in the AI training.
Yeah, I was about to say that there might be a little problem with beauty standards, huh?
Anyway, enough about all that stupid stuff. We've got some comments, and we're going to start with Joe's own comments, and he can say it for himself.
Hey.
Dear NVIDIA overlords, I've opted not to say anything during the last segment intentionally. So I wanted to let you guys know I have become a co-administrator on one of the Obsessed Home Theater community groups. So if you guys know anything about Youthman on YouTube, Michael Stevens has created groups that are intended to get people interested in the hobby able to communicate closer to each other. So we've been reaching out to folks. If you live in the greater Sacramento area, in my case, you answer a couple of questions and then you start listening to us post about what's in our own theaters, what movies we're watching. We're hoping to get to the point where we can actually schedule some get-togethers so we can check out other people's theaters. And that's one of the biggest challenges with this hobby, is that so many people are really focused on trying to get to know another theater because they've only seen their own, and right. So it's an opportunity to go out and meet like-minded people with similar hobbies and interests, as well as hopefully check out some of the theaters and what they've done in their own systems.
Very nice. Yeah, we'll have the link for that in our show notes if you want to check out the group that Joe Gluznik himself is personally a part of. And what's your position there? You're like an administrator of that particular one?
Co-administrator, yeah. Myself and another gentleman are the ones saying, yes, you can be in. No, you are bot, stay out.
And then the next one is you as well, so why don't you just carry right on? Yeah.
So I'm excited about this one. So if you guys can't get enough of me talking about home theater stuff, this Thursday I've wrangled my way into a panel of experts. So thank you for AVRant for giving me some modicum of credibility, and I'm actually going to be speaking with so DJ Briggs and Steve George, the hosts of Brightside Home Theater, that is a terrible picture, I'm so sorry, are going to be hosting a conversation about image quality. And that's really bad that picture is so bad for image quality.
I mean, you're talking about how it can be improved. So one of the ways is to not watch through your phone pointed at a laptop screen. That's
that was actually
one way you could improve.
Screen door across the room. But but more importantly, people who know what they're talking about: Joel Silver of ISF, John Thompson, who's a Hollywood producer with Disney and other studios, Andre Floyd, who's head of tech services at Kaleidoscape, and myself are all going to be talking about ways that you can improve your image quality. So looking forward to that. That will be live Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific streaming. So hopefully I don't say anything dumb out loud.
That'll be great. Yeah, so you can shoot us a link and we'll post that up in next week's episode in case people don't know how else to find it. But you can check that out, and I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic conversation.
Looking forward to it. I don't know if I'm going to get a word in edgewise because some of those guys can really talk, so we'll see.
Gosh, you've never had any experience being around somebody like that on a podcast before. It's completely new for you. So I'll take the next comment here, which is coming from one of the friends of our podcast here. That's Jeremy Porter. He's considers himself his our homegrown custom speaker company, and that is JPORTER Studios. He's going to be at AXPONA this year, which is taking place from April 10th to 12th in room 1415. So he's going to be showing off his newest speaker design. It's not featured on his website just yet, but you're just having a look at the website there, so you know the company we're talking about. So the brand new one is going to be called the Wellington Micro. He's got some Wellington Towers and then some Waterloo Micro bookshelf speakers. So the Wellington series is going to be expanding with a new micro 3-way bookshelf that has a passive tweeter and mid-range, plus a self-powered subwoofer driver built in. So the cabinets are made from laminated Baltic birch, and they're using constrained layer damping, so that's like green glue, essentially, to eliminate vibrations in the cabinets themselves. The goal of his was to achieve the lowest distortion possible, so he's using carbon drivers. They're all custom for this speaker. Every individual speaker is extensively tested prior to shipping it out, so yeah, this is bespoke stuff. The subwoofer driver is powered by 5 500 watt Hypex Encore amplifier, one of those in each speaker, with an active crossover that's providing essentially a brick wall filter at the top of that subwoofer driver, 180 decibels per octave, which is not something you'd be able to build in any sort of reasonable cost or even just practical way with passive components, but a digital filter can do that right at the top where the bass driver meets up with the mid-range. So check them out. Say hi from us. Go say hi to Jeremy if you're visiting AXPONA this year. Lee, why don't you take the last comment? Or is the last comment? Not quite. You can do the next two, though, because we know your favorite's coming up at the end.
Yes. James just wanted to give a shout out to Jennifer Gala and Gala Media for their 4K 60 Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos demo clips. You can see a bunch of their clips in HDR10 with Dolby Digital Plus audio on their YouTube channel, and I'm sure we will share a link with that.
We'll have a link in the show notes.
Yes. And then they link to their Patreon where you can pay and subscribe to access the Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos versions. James doesn't have any affiliation with the site. He was just really impressed with the demos and thought other AVRant listeners might want to check them out. Yeah, some folks are just so good at it and make things available on YouTube. YouTube's kind of an amazing thing sometimes.
Yeah, if you just want some eye-popping stuff to show off your brand new Dolby Vision OLED or something like that, for sure. Yeah. There's some fun demo material there.
Or your 8-year-old OLED, as the case may be.
Absolutely. Still does Dolby Vision.
Yeah, still does. Infinite Gary.
Yeah.
A crazy windstorm barreled through Gary's area, and a terrible noise from upstairs alerted him to a minor disaster. His 10-foot diameter Orbitron SX10 C-band satellite dish antenna is no more. It has gone bonk.
Yup.
It had diligently scanned the skies for 41 years. R.I.P. Orbitron SX10, 1985 to 2026.
Yes,
that's amazing. He had it up there without any problems for 4 decades.
That's right.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a testament to the installation, for one thing.
Yep.
And to stay interested enough in it. I have seen a few YouTube channels on the topic of satellite TV, and there is stuff still available for people that have the 10-foot dishes or the smaller, was it KU band that came after that? But most people did what my in-laws did, and they had a system in the early 80s, and they were so excited, and within like a few months, they started scrambling everything.
Right.
And to this day, if you go out in their backyard, there's an upside-down satellite dish acting as like a little umbrella over a seating area, and it's adorable.
At least it's been repurposed. But yes, I'm sad to hear about that, Gary. But yes, you can certainly say that you got your use out of it and that it lived a good long life. And yep,
I'm
winds
impressed.
Finally came along. Yeah,
very impressed.
Well, why don't we actually get to some questions on this here question and answer podcast? We are playing a little bit of catch up, but there was oodles to talk about, and no Tom here to stop me. So what's gonna happen? We can't be stopped in the length of this podcast. But yes, let's get to some
me
questions. Tonight. Joe, why don't you start us off with our first one for this week?
David, stationed in Japan. David went ahead and ordered himself a region-free Sony X800 M2 universal disc player from 220 Electronics. They shipped it to him in Japan very quickly, and after quickly testing it with a disc of every type that he owns, it works great so far. It does seem like the right player choice for the job, and it's also handy that it natively supports both 110 volts and 240 volt outlets, and can easily convert between NTSC and PAL, so it really is ready for just about anything except for HDR10 Plus.
Right.
He wanted to double check about a few of its settings. First, under its screen settings, by default, it has Bravia mode turned on, which is supposedly meant to detect and optimize things like resolution and HDR settings if the player is plugged into other Sony Bravia devices. He is not using a Sony receiver or TV, so he turned it off. Any reason to turn it back on since settings are not always intuitive?
Nope, that one's safe to keep off. In fact, I would probably turn it off even if I were connected to a Sony Bravia TV and AV receiver, because I don't love when it tries to do automatic settings. But yeah, totally fine to have that one off.
And I'm assuming that is just the HDMI codename Sony's using for their brand of that, right?
I mean, it's not quite CEC. That is actual like detection of, are we setting this to 4K output or 2K output? Are we setting this to switch with HDR or just always put it into one container at all times? So yeah, it is kind of a dynamic thing, and it's not just CEC. It's a Bravia to Bravia thing.
So leave it off. Okay.
Yeah.
Next, he found the Dolby Vision setting by default. It is set to off, and everything more or less works that way you would expect. DVDs and Blu-rays play in SDR, 3D plays in 3D, HDR plays in HDR10. If you turn it on, everything plays in Dolby Vision, and 3D no longer works. So with his Dolby Vision capable TV, if he knows ahead of time that a particular Ultra HD Blu-ray is in Dolby Vision, he knows he can turn the setting on in the Sony player, and Dolby Vision is definitely going to come out. But the majority of the time, he should just leave it turned off, correct?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
If he happens to play a Dolby Vision Ultra HD Blu-ray, but he forgets to turn this setting on, will it still play in HDR, right? It's just the HDR10 instead of Dolby Vision.
Yep, that's absolutely the way it'll work. This is clearly the solution for, say, a Samsung TV that doesn't support Dolby Vision at all, right? You can't turn this on and have it work, but even if you're putting in a disc that does have Dolby Vision on the disc, there is no such thing as an Ultra HD physical Blu-ray that has Dolby Vision that does not also have an HDR10, basically like core. It's almost as though the Dolby Vision is an extension on top of the HDR10 core, so it will always be able to fall back to HDR10 at the very least. And yeah, this is a case of, since so many TVs now barely have to do any tone mapping anyway, and if they do, they're pretty darn good at it. It's like, to me, it's really not the end of the world if you forget to turn the Dolby Vision setting on.
That's what I was about to ask, is if there's enough of a difference to bother or just leave it off.
I mean, it's more of a curiosity, right? Yeah. If you want to talk, because I mean, like, look, occasionally there are some visible differences. People always point to that scene in the movie Pan where they're, flying off into the sun, and you can toggle between the HDR10 and the Dolby Vision on the disc, and there almost always is a visible difference on most screens. And if you just want it for that curiosity of seeing if there's a difference whatsoever, then it's there. But like, yes, obviously, I've commented on this oodles of times about the Sony Ultra HD Blu-ray players. I'm like, it should just turn to Dolby Vision automatically when it is Dolby Vision, and it should automatically turn back off when it isn't. It's insane to me that it's always been a manual toggle on and back off. But if I were to set it and forget it, I would set it to off and forget it and not be that worried that I'm never getting the Dolby Vision off the disc, because the HDR10 looks just fine.
To continue, pretty much all of the other settings seems like they ought to be left at their default auto setting. Like everything to do with 24p playback, deep color, aspect ratio, it all seems to make sense to let the player automatically switch to match whatever is originally on the disc, right?
Yeah. And honestly, some of the manual settings would be like, yeah, unless you really know what you're doing, I wouldn't want to change it from that. And the auto does a perfectly fine job for almost everything else.
What about the 4K upscale setting, though? By default, it's set to Auto 1, which says it will output 4K at all times to any non-Sony 4K display. And if it detects that it is connected to a Sony display, which it isn't in his case, it will output the native resolution so that the Sony display can do the upscaling instead of the player. Auto 2 will just output 4K all the time, no matter what. So if he turned it off, he figured he'd let his LG TV handle any necessary upscaling. But is that the correct thing to do? Should he be letting the player do the 4K upscaling instead?
I mean, honestly, I doubt you'd notice any difference.
Yeah.
Like, it seems unlikely to me that visibly you're really going to see any difference. But no, I mean, he's got a pretty recent LG TV. It does an absolutely fine job of upscaling. I'm not usually the biggest fan of having the player do much else than get the bits off the disc and feed it to my AV receiver and TV and let them do its thing. DVDs in particular, I'm like, yeah, a lot of the most up-to-date TVs have better DVD upscaling than even a dedicated player does in a lot of cases. So,
and I don't know how new his LG TV is, but that Sony player is 8 years old or something? I mean, it's going back a little ways now.
It's not super duper new, no. So
the upscaling in it, you try them both. It depends. See what looks better.
If only
Yeah,
we had an NVIDIA upscaler and it could add wrinkles and interesting lighting.
Take away lights and
That's
add
right.
makeup.
That's right. No, but yeah, again, if I was going to set it and forget it, I would set it to off. Yeah.
Okay. For the audio settings, he was able to set the player to output multi-channel DSD for his SACDs, and with the player connected via HDMI to his Denon receiver, that seems to be working perfectly fine. He did try playing a DVD audio disc, and it was, in fact, necessary to turn Bluetooth off in the Sony player. Weird, but it works.
And they did say it in the manual, so they can't be totally blamed. It's not in the biggest print, and you kind of have to have definitely read through the playing DVD audio section to have ever known about it. But yeah, you got to turn Bluetooth off, which is on by default.
Why?
There's some licensing thing that, like, restrictive licensing thing that DVD audio had, where they're like, you're not allowed to
Said
send
no
DVD
Bluetooth.
audio wirelessly. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That's
So then
stupid, but okay.
So then there was one other setting related to PCM output. You can select whether to output PCM at 48 kilohertz, 96 kilohertz, or 192 kilohertz. But the manual says this setting only applies if the coax digital output. And by default, it's set to 48 kilohertz because apparently that is the most compatible. Any reason to worry about or change that setting? He's only using an HDMI connection now, and so far he hasn't found any need to have the player convert DSD signals to PCM.
Nope. I mean,
Don't touch it.
I guess I haven't personally tested this extensively enough to see if there's some kind of glitch that it's doing something it says it's not doing, but since you're not using the digital coax output, this shouldn't make a lick of difference. Also, audibly speaking, it won't make a lick of difference under any circumstances. No. Even if you were using the digital coax and you turned it up to 192, which your Denon can technically support as an input, but yeah, audibly speaking, it wouldn't make any difference anyway, and 48 kilohertz is the safest setting, so leave that alone, shouldn't make a lick of difference.
And then any other gotcha settings he ought to change?
There is one for sure. Under the audio settings, there's one that's called audio DRC, and that is dynamic range compression. The default for that is auto, and it's supposed to be abiding by the metadata, essentially the dialogue normalization metadata that's on the discs. But if it doesn't detect any metadata, then it defaults to dynamic range compression on. Not my favorite choice there. So if you want the maximum dynamic range from every single disc, no matter what's going on, and this can definitely be the case on Blu-rays where the only option is DTS and not Dolby Digital, because Dolby Digital has the dialogue normalization and DTS often doesn't, and that means that dynamic range compression is defaulting to on when you're outputting DTS. So I would turn that audio DRC setting off. There's no real reason why the player shouldn't just be outputting the maximum dynamic range in the audio section. If you want to do any dynamic range compression for nighttime listening or something like that, do that in your AV receiver. I wouldn't have the player applying that in an automatic sense. So yeah, I get that, they want to abide by dialogue normalization, but yeah, I'd rather just make sure I'm always getting maximum dynamic range. So that's the only real gotcha setting. The other ones are exactly what you would expect at CEC, right? Do you want HDMI CEC on or off? Because of course, by default, it's on. So for some reason, they didn't call it Bravia Sync, which Sony usually always calls it Bravia Sync, but here they just called it Control for HDMI. That's their name in this case for HDMI CEC. It also has a separate setting, which is the linked to TV off setting. Another strange name, but yeah, even stranger is if you want to turn that off, the setting you have to choose is invalid. Like they don't have on and off.
Invalid.
You have
404 not found.
You have to set it to invalid to turn CEC off and not have the player automatically power off along with the TV, or the TV automatically turn on along with the player. If you're using a universal remote with macros and you don't want that to happen through HDMI CEC, then set it to invalid, which is not necessarily the most intuitive of settings. Any further on that one? Are we ready to move on to question 2?
Yeah.
Got one question done in an hour and 20 minutes. Let's keep going.
We're rolling. Lee, why don't you do the next one?
Sure. I'll try to talk faster. Adam has a question. Adam has been digging into the settings of his Emotiva XMC2 Pre-Pro that he bought used from another AVRant listener. He wanted to be able to import and export EQ filters, and he also figured he'd update the firmware to the latest version posted on Emotiva's website. But for some reason, his XMC2 didn't recognize any of the USB sticks he tried plugging into it. He followed the instructions to format the USB stick in FAT32. He tried both the front and back USB ports on the XMC2. He even tried a much older 4 gig USB 2.0 stick formatted in FAT32, but no joy. Emotiva's own forum does warn that the XMC2 is very picky about detecting USB sticks, and they've listed a few brands and models that forum members have confirmed to work with the XMC2. But is it actually worth the expense? My guess, probably not. What about it, Rob? Is it worth the trouble?
Yeah, strangely enough, it does seem to be that going with a particular one from the brand Transcend, which is the most highly recommended, and then I've always trusted the SanDisk brand. They kind of are the de facto standard brand is SanDisk, but going with kind of the lower capacity, probably USB 2.0. There was a little bit more to that question if we want to fill it in, but just to give the complete answer there.
USB ports on his XMC2 don't seem to be outright dead because there's an indication that something was in fact plugged in, but they just won't read the USB sticks he has already tried. Why would only certain particular brands and models of USB sticks work? That seems very strange. So is it actually legitimate, or is this just anecdotal advice being posted on Emotiva's forum? It's possible. I've seen motherboards, I've seen weird USB chipsets on computers that were weirdly picky about certain equipment. Like I've seen devices where people were discussing what kind of USB chipset on a motherboard could work with it. So it can get stupid for some reason.
I can't say Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Some projectors are the same way, where you were installing updates with USB, so you're jacking that into the back of the projector, hanging from the ceiling, and crossing your fingers you're not going to brick the thing by an incompatible one.
Yeah, I can't say I honestly know the nitty-gritty details about it, but one thing I do know from the HDMI side of things, Emotiva has basically bemoaned on their own forums when people are complaining about how long it takes for them to support the latest HDMI spec or get their updates ready. Like, Emotiva has always followed the actual official specifications. That's been the way that they've approached things with HDMI. It wouldn't surprise me if they've done the same thing with USB, right? They've actually followed the full-on written-up specifications. This is exactly the protocols that are supposed to work on this connection format. And by and large, there are a huge number of components out there that don't strictly follow the rules. And so companies have to do kind of workarounds and other ways that aren't strictly adhering to the official specifications to get things to be more compatible with other devices that aren't strictly adhering to the standards. So it to my mind, it's likely something like that, but I truly don't know the nitty-gritty details. So I'll just include the links for anyone else who has one of these Emotiva Pre-Pros. They've mentioned that firmware version 5.5 is the newest that's available for the XMC2, but that is only if it has the eARC upgraded HDMI ports on it, because originally when the XMC2 first came out, it did not have eARC. It had regular HDMI ARC, but not enhanced audio return channels. But they offered an update. It was like a physical board replacement to add the eARC output. So if it has that version, then you want firmware 5.5. They warn, if you do not have the eARC HDMI board, if you have the original board that had regular HDMI audio return channel, but not enhanced audio return channel, then you want to stop at version 3.2. So in the 5.5 update thread, they include instructions and a video on how to check before you do the update. Do I have the eARC board, or do I have the non-eARC, the regular HDMI ARC board? And make sure you check that before you update the firmware.
Sounds very much like updating the BIOS on a motherboard in a computer.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And the same sorts of concerns. Yep. So, well, fast forward here. Enough time went by between AVRant episodes that Adam provided a follow-up and, unfortunately, a whole new set of problems. The specific USB stick that Rob linked to was successfully detected. Adam was able to import and export his EQ filters as desired, so that was great.
Yeah.
And then he performed the version 5.5 firmware update. All of a sudden, those EQ filter imports and exports are no longer working. The connection to Emotiva's app on his phone seems to be borked, and if he's playing a TV series on his Apple TV 4K, when it automatically goes to the next episode, the audio signal drops out. He can toggle the audio mode on the Emotiva and the signal comes back, but it is obviously an annoyance and wasn't happening ever prior to the firmware update. The old firmware had some bugs, which is why he wanted to do the firmware update in the first place, but the old bugs seem minor compared to all the new ones.
Yeah.
The thing is, on Emotiva's website, on the forum, in big, bold, all cap letters, they warn that you should not try to downgrade back to an older firmware version after performing a firmware update. So what is he to do? Oh, this makes me so mad.
Yeah.
The audio and video equipment in the home theater should never be this kind of finicky stuff.
It sounds like you're trying to
a computer motherboard.
jailbreak a BlackBerry here. This is just very
You're really
antiquated.
not. Yeah, you're really not doing anything out of pocket here. So look, I am not going to tell you to ignore that warning. There's probably a darn good reason why they put a big, bold, all caps warning. Hey, don't try to downgrade your firmware back after you've done a firmware update to a newer version. But they don't explain in detail exactly what could go wrong, and I don't happen to know off the top of my head. So here's one thing you can try. Obviously, full factory reset. Yes, that's going to wipe out all of your settings, but I mean, at least that's safe to do, is a full factory reset. I also would attempt, just like when there's a driver problem on a PC or a firmware update problem on other devices, try reinstalling the 5.5 firmware again.
Possible.
If it even lets you do that, right? Some devices don't, they'll just say, hey, you're trying to install the exact same firmware that's already here, and they don't even let you proceed. But some do. Some let you reinstall the same firmware, that version that you're already doing. So I would feel okay telling you to give that a try, but outside of that, you got to contact Emotiva's own customer support. I can't feel good about saying anything other than that.
Yeah, see if they can roll it back where you might have to ship it to them or something.
Exactly.
On the Apple TV, as far as switching between episodes, you're dropping signal and re-handshaking or something like that. What setting is it? Is it a match frame rate or something that will not require it to resync? I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I touched one.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is like any of the match content, right? There's both match dynamic range and match frame rate. And so if you don't do that, then it'll just stick to a constant frame rate and a constant dynamic range, whether that's standard dynamic range or HDR10 or HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision. You take your choice, but everything will come out in that container no matter what. The Apple TV 4K will just... just stick to it. But there is the one other setting that could help you here. It's relatively new. It was after an Apple TV 4K firmware update. But they now have the constant audio output setting, which is, as we've said before on like NVIDIA Shield, they call it comfort noise. But it just means that there's an inaudible audio signal at all times coming out of the Apple TV 4K. And that prevents those signal dropouts in the audio because it's just always sending an audio signal, never ever stopping. So that you can just go into your Apple TV 4K's settings in its audio video settings and look for that constant audio output setting. Only available if you've chosen automatic audio output with Dolby Atmos support, but that should be fine with the components that you're using. And then you can have it just always outputting a signal. It'll be silent most of the time, but it just never goes to an actual no signal, so that signal dropout should stop. But if it's like just a full-on glitch in the Emotiva, then even that might not fix that.
Sure. Comfort noise, not as bad as comfort food for you, though.
Right. That's right.
And that, by the way, I'm so full of enchiladas right now. I'm surprised I haven't just flopped over to the side and started snoring. I made the mistake of eating so much food. I have stifled a couple of yawns. So I'm just letting you know. Non-zero chance I pass out from enchiladas soon.
Food coma.
Okay, don't assume that he's bored. He's just full.
So full of enchiladas.
Well, why don't I read a question since we seem to be trading around for everything here? So, Leighton recently purchased a Sony X90L television, and he's really happy with its picture quality. He's personally never seen a TV that looks as good as this in his own home before, and very happy to hear that. The X90L is a very nice TV, so I am not going to poo-poo that one little bit. He's using the TV's built-in apps for streaming purposes. The Sony runs Google TV as its OS. With the TV connected to his AV receiver via HDMI eARC, YouTube seems to work perfectly fine. Blu-rays and DVDs all play perfectly fine. But when he uses the Netflix app, for some strange reason, the center channel never seems to play. The AV receiver's front display indicates that a full surround sound signal is being input, including the center channel, but there's no sound coming from the center speaker, which is obviously a big problem. The lack of a center channel also has happened with other streaming apps on the TV, such as Disney Plus and HBO Max, but it has been infrequent with those other apps. So it's not as though the center channel literally never works. It works fine with YouTube. It works with apps other than Netflix, although sometimes it doesn't. And so, yeah, it seems to be app dependent somehow. Is this strange thing a settings issue that he can easily fix, or what else could it possibly be? Joe had an idea, I know.
I've experienced something like that before and realized I had a receiver set to something was happening where it was taking a stereo signal from a program and then putting it into a surround sound format,
Container,
if you will.
Yep, sure.
And so it put the left in the left, the right in the right, which means there was no content in the center.
Yeah.
And then nothing in the back either. And so that was similar. And I hated it because I lost my good center. I'm always flopped over on the couch off to one side. So I need the center channel to sound like I'm never in the sweet spot.
And then you can't apply an up mixer on your AV receiver because it's as far as it's concerned, it's already getting a surround sound signal from the source device. Yeah.
So I've had that happen. I don't know if that applies here.
Yeah, so when we were texting about this, I first thought it could be that some of the Sony TVs have a setting where you can either use the Sony speakers, or on certain Sony TVs, they would actually do drivers that would vibrate the glass, and you could use that as the center speaker.
Yeah,
so
on their OLEDs, they can do the thing where they have little actuators behind the OLED panel itself, and it vibrates the screen surface to act as a speaker. But that wouldn't be the case in the X90L, but it does have support.
That wouldn't be
Sony
app dependent. That's something you have to turn on and off. So it's not so much. So I would check, can you see if you've got the latest version of Netflix, check to see that your software is up to date, make sure all your connections are good, or stop watching Netflix entirely would be an option.
Save the money. That's what I did.
Well, yeah, Sony's got a feature called S Center, which, as far as I can tell, the X90L does support. And this is predominantly meant to work along with like their HTA9 or their Bravia Quad wireless speaker systems, where they give you 4 speakers and then they intend for you to use the TV speakers as the center speaker. And so there's actually it's just a 3.5 millimeter jack on the back of the TV that's labeled S Center, and that connects to like the HTA9 or some other sound bars as well, or the Bravia Theater Quad. And so once that cable is plugged in and it detects that, it says, okay, the TV is the center speaker. And so that can't be the case when you're plugging it in via eARC to your AV receiver, because you're not using that S center cable. But I was wondering, could this be an actual hardware fault where the TV is just mistakenly detecting something plugged into that jack? I've had AV receivers, Denon AV receivers, where it thought the Odyssey microphone was plugged into it when it wasn't, right? The jack was just faulty, and it was just like, oh, something's plugged into me. So I was like, okay, does it think something's plugged into that S-Center jack? And it's actually coincidence that it's happened when you've been watching Netflix and some of the other apps. It's coincidence that it's never happened yet with the YouTube app, and it's not actually a causal link between which app you're using, but it could be like a hardware problem. I mean, that's something that I guess you could blow some compressed air into it. That wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
How old is that Sony?
Take a 3.5 millimeter jack, or plug it in and pull it out a few times.
Yeah.
How old is that TV? How long has it been installed? How dusty is it inside? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, the only other thing is, I've had this problem forever with my Xbox Series X. If I set that thing to output an Atmos signal, whatever, sometimes my center speaker just drops out. And I've just had to toggle the audio settings on the Xbox. It doesn't do it with any other source device. It's only the Xbox. It's why I've just defaulted to having the Xbox output a stupid stereo signal and relying on on upmixing to do any surround from the Xbox, which I very, very rarely ever turn on, let alone play anything on that thing anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's not impossible that this is coming from the source device, which in this case is the TV itself. So the other solution is you get an external streaming device, right? You get an Apple TV 4K or an NVIDIA Shield or an up-to-date Roku or the on streaming box from Walmart or something. Like, it doesn't have to be expensive, right? A Roku or an on streaming box can be very inexpensive. And if it saves you this headache, then the 40 or 50 bucks is worth it.
And then just on the Netflix, you may need to remove the app from the TV and reinstall it to make sure you're getting the newest version. That may help, may not.
So carrying on with Leighton, he went through the available settings in the TV's audio section. He found that if he forces one of them, which is called the digital audio out, that's one of the things you can click into and choose some settings there. If he forces that to always go out as PCM, the center channel and the surrounds do seem to work fine, even on Netflix, but now Atmos won't play, of course. So I don't know why Sony has this many settings to do with audio, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's already tried turning things on and off. There is the TV center speaker mode. That's exactly what we were talking about, but he already had that turned off. I would try turning off the audio system prioritization and the sound mode sync and the AV sync even, which is like the HDMI lip sync setting, which very often makes the lip sync worse versus better. So, I would have tried turning all of those things off, but yeah, I kind of suspect at the end of this, you're just going to be plugging an external box into your AV receiver and doing that for your streaming. All right. With that, Lee, there's another favorite for you right here.
Buddy. It's Infinite Gary. I can't. Infinite Gary emailed me a while back to tell me he was getting a puppy. And here it is, and everybody looking at YouTube should see this, and it's wonderful. Sparky the puppy, he's just a fluff ball. Sparky the puppy had his first vet and grooming visits, but he's been strangely silent on providing feedback to Gary about the nuances of his quadraphonic playpen speaker setup, perhaps still collecting his thoughts and forming an opinion. Right now, that little fluff ball doesn't look like he's thinking about anything.
I don't know.
Just run and play and chase and sleep and have puppy breath and puppy teeth.
Deep contemplation about quadraphonic sound, I think, is what's going on.
That must be what it is. So there's your puppy break for the day, everyone, from Infinite Gary. Sparky is an adorable little fluff ball. He's wonderful. What breed is that? I forget. Who cares? It doesn't matter. He's perfect. So moving on. Gary doesn't watch a ton of stuff on Netflix, but he still finds a few shows that he wants to watch, so he just subscribes to the standard with ads plan. He decided to watch Nuremberg, but when he went to play it, he was confronted with the message, "Change plan to watch." And the splash page said unavailable on an ad-supported plan due to licensing restrictions. What gives? I'll tell you what gives. You need to give Netflix no money. Stop subscribing. What sort of licensing restrictions would prevent this particular movie from being shown with Netflix's ads inserted? It's entirely possible that their agreement says no ads. That the studio's agreement with Netflix says no ads.
The more common thing is it's coming from a studio. I wouldn't necessarily expect it specifically in the movie Nuremberg, but it's usually just a studio-wide thing. It's like some studios have an agreement with Pepsi, right? They put Pepsi products in their movies, and then Netflix has an agreement with Coca-Cola. They put Coca-Cola ads, and they're like, hey, if this service is with Coca-Cola and we, the studio, have an agreement with Pepsi, you can't put your ads in our movies because Pepsi's going to come after us for you having a Coca-Cola ad in there, and we have an exclusive agreement with them. And of course, could be rival car companies, could be rival anything companies, right? Typically it's that when it's not Netflix's own production from their own Netflix studios, and it's an external studio, and they've got a licensing agreement. It's usually that studio has ad agreements in place, and Netflix has a rival company.
So what gives? Lawyers. That's what gives. More from him. Ben-Hur got an Ultra HD Blu-ray release, obviously, when it was shot in 1958 to 1959. There was no such thing as digital 4K resolution in HDR. So how faithful is this kind of release to the original vision for the film? Well, you know what? Film kind of was HDR and definitely was 4K. So the challenge, the reason we've gone through all these great links to have 4K and HDR is simply to match how good film was many decades ago. So I bet it's pretty darn faithful if they do it right from as close to the master print as possible.
Yeah, someone once said digital, when it grows up, wants to be analog. So yeah, it's
wants to be the film. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, certainly on the side of resolution, yeah, I mean you can scan at a nearly endlessly high resolution, and like film just doesn't have individual pixels. It's a continuous spectrum that's going on. So yeah, the resolution, there's nothing to be worried about on that front. But the HDR is a little bit interesting because like obviously when Ben-Hur was projected in theaters, and when they originally released it, like they were aware of the theaters in which it was going to be shown. So they were definitely not targeting 1,000 nits to be coming out of any theater in 1959 when this movie first released. Now, of course, just because it's in a Dolby Vision container doesn't mean that they had to artificially put 1,000 nit or brighter highlights into this movie. I haven't seen this. I don't know exactly. I haven't looked at a histogram to know exactly how bright the brightest pixel in this movie really is. But yeah, I mean, the contrast, the native contrast of film itself is very, very high. But it was, yeah, obviously never intended to be projected in a full-blown movie cinema in 1959 at probably not even 50 nits maximum, right? I mean, back then, movies were projected pretty dim, and so it was probably under 50 nits that it was really intended to be. So yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of, it's not going to look on your OLED, this version of it, the way it looked at the movie theater in 1959. That I feel pretty confident in saying. The highlights are going to be brighter than that. So strictly speaking, yes, we've moved away from the very original 1959 intention of how it was going to look in a projected cinema at the time. But in terms of just seeing the contrast that was on the film that was shot, because they went back to the original camera negatives to do a new 8K scan of this.
And that was probably a 65 millimeter print, right? So that's big film that you've got a lot of information on. Yeah. So
now I want to find a projectionist who's in his 90s and ask how this was measured. And now I'm curious, what was that dynamic range? What kind of nits could you get in 1958? I bet more than 50. I bet it was more than that. That was just a guess.
I don't know. They were pretty dim.
Now I want to know. I really want to know now. So
you didn't have the crazy xenon bulbs.
Yeah. No, you didn't have that. It really, really hot incandescent
halogens, man. It was halogens.
Yeah. You were burning it up. And that's why if that film stopped, it melted. Right. And that was it. And the movie wasn't playing.
On the original negative, the black is darn near that is black. So, in terms of contrast, it's getting close to infinite, right? So you kind of have your choice, right, of what you do with that. But yes, I would venture to say that on a modern OLED, this Ultra HD Blu-ray release does not look... They weren't calling it nits back then, but it doesn't look nit for nit identical to how it would have looked in a cinema. It almost certainly does look brighter. Joe, why don't we carry on to our next question here?
Sounds good. Scott decided to utilize some surprisingly old AV equipment to create an, quote, analog setup in one corner of his kids' playroom. He figured they should be exposed to vintage gear. Expose them to lead paint while you're at it. Come on. So now is where the first pair of speakers and the first stereo receiver that he bought when he and his wife got married reside. It's a Sony STR D365 from 1994. Go Gauchos. Along with a pair of Sony SS MF315 towers from 1999. And when his eldest son took an interest in vinyl records, he had an Audio-Technica ATLP60X turntable. But then the setup expanded, as they often do. His company was cleaning out an old storage area, and they were going to junk a Gold Star CMT 9325 CRT television from 1986, as well as a Sony SLV D350p DVD VCR combo player. Amazingly, they both still function perfectly fine, so Scott rescued them from going to a landfill, and now his kids get to enjoy them instead.
How fun. This makes me think of my cousin who just turned 18, and she's had a turntable, a JVC turntable from the early 80s. I gave her a used Yamaha receiver from the mid-90s. She has speakers from her dad from her grandfather, that are Bose speakers from the late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around in there. And I found a cassette deck now I might have to give her. I just think it's totally cool. We've got something to relate to, and she needs to learn how to make a mixtape. So I think this is really fun. I like what Scott did.
I think there's a Laserdisc player around here somewhere I can send.
Heck yeah.
So with the addition of the ability to play DVDs, he could no longer call this the analog setup, strictly speaking. So he went ahead and added a Weem Pro Plus network player as well. Huh? He can honestly say that piecing the system together was more fun than putting together the much more modern systems in other rooms of his house. Yeah. He also appreciates how listening to vinyl really is a different kind of experience, because you can't just skip to the next song with the push of a button. The album gets to control you instead of you controlling the album. Mm-hmm. He was kind of taken aback at how good the black levels of the old CRT from 1986 still look, and DVDs playing on a CRT, they kind of look great, right?
Yeah.
Especially that wood veneer. Come on, that's hot stuff. It's also such a simple system to hook up and use, and with so few settings to adjust, you just sort of accept its performance and stop worrying so much. There's something to be said for being reminded how it used to be, and he's realizing how his new high-end systems have become so complex that he probably doesn't enjoy them as much as he should. He's always worried about maximizing their performance and trying to tweak things to optimize them. Meanwhile, pop in an old VHS tape and pop open a bottle of wine, 10 out of 10. Would highly recommend. Anyway, now that there's technically a DVD player, and now that he's added the Weem Pro Plus to the setup, what should he call this instead of an analog setup?
Any ideas?
Oh, it's just a retro setup, isn't it? That's a good question.
It's
retro setup is the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah,
hybrid relic. Retro setup, throwback, vintage.
Call it the yard sale setup.
Call it saving money.
Because it's a little
throwback
bit
setup,
right?
sounds okay, but it kind of looks like throw up when you just print it really quickly. So probably not that one.
No, don't call
vintage
it that.
setup. Could be vintage, but the Wim takes it away from being a vintage setup. That's a modern component.
Yeah, I'm going to go with hybrid.
Well, that's just an enhancement. It's
it's a hybrid vintage.
All right.
I
think it should be called Scott's Historical AV Monument.
There you go. Audio video through the decades.
It's the yard sale corner, man. It's that's what it looks like.
You know what's funny is that's kind of what my downstairs system is, right? Anytime I buy a piece of gear and it's in the theater for a while, eventually it may make its way downstairs to the family room setup, because that's where the Blu-ray player went. That's where some power conditioners went. That's where, things that just, that's the next phase of their evolution. So, next question related to this, are there any reference quality sorry, I'm not laughing at you, VHS tapes that he ought to keep an eye out for to add to his collection? Thoughts?
Does he mean literal test tapes?
No,
I think just talking about very good looking movies.
Yeah, movies where people were like, hey, this is like a really good looking VHS.
How about ones that haven't been played before? Because they do have a tendency to degrade over time. This is, an older medium. But so I see some of the notes on here, and I strongly agree with the Star Wars trilogy. This was one of the ways you could watch the unaltered original versions of that.
That's right.
The Terminator, and I think that was a mono soundtrack back then on that one. Top Gun, great movie, big dollars, Pepsi promotion. Lots of Disney releases, especially for the kids, right? You can break out all your old Disney VHS.
Yeah, it's he insists that this is for the kids in their playroom, but I don't know. It sounds like Scott has spent some time himself with this setup. I don't know.
Yeah. He did say open a bottle of wine, so I don't know. They may be very European, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this sounds like a fun evening. I totally would. I need to break out my Laserdisc player. I've told you about my Laserdisc player that has wood grain. It's the first Pioneer Laserdisc player from 1980.
That's how you know it's classy.
It weighs a lot, and it's gorgeous. Huge buttons. Huge.
Yeah, the only VHS tapes I have, I think I do still have Star Wars over there in the closet, but not a lot else.
That's the one.
I have some Disney just for fun.
Yeah.
And a few weird ones that I didn't think I could ever find again in any other format. But anything that was VHS that was just a regular old movie that I wanted to watch the movie, I got rid of those VHS a while back. It was just too much space. But anything really weird and rare, and a handful of Disney ones, I do still have actually on a china cabinet shelf in the living room. So I get it, man. I still have a little integrated old stuff in my main home theater system. If you hand me a DVD or a VHS or an 8mm tape, I could play in my home theater system.
I would get Ghostbusters on VHS just for nostalgia purposes. But
like you said, Joe, the most important thing, try to find one that hasn't been played a lot.
Yeah.
Because getting any kind of wrinkles and wear on the tape can make a lot of difference too.
Yeah, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, there's a certain spot that gets worn out really easy.
Something about a swimming pool. Yeah.
So, you know what? I just thought of one that's kind of an interesting one to have. American Beauty, although yes, obviously very problematic lead actor in that movie, but the VHS version of American Beauty is the only way where they released it. They didn't pan and scan it, right? When that movie was done in theaters, it was widescreen format. I don't know if it was exactly 2.35 to 1, but it was widescreen format. On the DVD release, they just went to the original negative capture and just didn't crop off the top and bottom. So there are entire sections above and below the image on the VHS version of American Beauty that are not in existence in any other format that you see that movie. It's a little bit strange sometimes, seeing like that much space below people's feet and that much space above people's heads. But it's a unique one if you want to add that to your collection, and you don't have a problem with the whole Kevin Spacey of it all.
Continuing his question, he's noticed that with any of the VHS tapes they've watched on the system, nobody has ever had any problems understanding any of the dialogue. But when they watch anything on Netflix, on one of the up-to-date systems, everyone wants to have the closed captions turned on because they don't always catch what the actors are saying. Yep. He suspects that with only 2 analog channels to mix the master, the process used to be simpler. And knowing that most people would only ever hear things played through built-in TV speakers, dialogue clarity was given maximum priority in the mix back in the day. What do you think?
That's just a trend lately. If you're talking about newer movies, they just don't care if you can hear it anymore. That's just the truth. I mean, it used to be going way back. Films just had clearer audio because that was the assumption of what you needed, whether it was in the theater or at home. It was just clearer. And now, for whatever reason, the kind of microphones we're using, the technology available, home theater systems, maybe, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I've read articles about this. That's just the trend. They are making audio lousy for dialogue now. And my assumption is when I'm watching a movie like that, you must not want me to hear it. And I am not turning on closed caption. I'm not deaf yet. I'm getting older, but I ain't that old. So I'm just like, I guess it wasn't important. Whatever.
Yeah, they really focused on dialogue back in the day. And it's like, it does seem like after the whole change over to doing everything in LUFS, right? Loudness units versus full scale, because we didn't used to do it that way, but now you just look on a graph, you look on a visualized representation of the audio levels, and I suspect there's quite a bit of mastering that's just kind of being done visually without really doing a whole lot of listening back to it, in a regular playback system. And they're just like, looks good by the graph. The LUFs all equal where they ought to be, and don't necessarily double check, whether it's really intelligible anymore. Whereas like back in VHS, there was definitely someone listening to everything that got put on that tape.
Well, someone's job was to watch it on a 19-inch TV with one small oval speaker, and just to make sure that everybody could see it and hear it.
Well, back in the day, in the mixing rooms, they also had a standardized, I think it was a Yamaha crap speaker, right? Yeah. Where they would make sure that everything that had to sound good on that before it went out, because chances are that what was on your car radio, what was going over AM or FM broadcast, what was on the TV itself was, like you're saying, a little tiny mediocre speaker.
What's strange is sound quality has fads just like fashion, which you wouldn't think that it would, because the whole goal is to hear things as intended, but it changes very much. It's much like headphones and music has way too much bass now. Just so bassy.
it's not like it's a literal technical limitation of modern equipment, because watch most animation and the voices are crystal clear. You have no problem understanding what the characters are saying in most animated features. But then again, all of that dialogue is being recorded in a pristine vocal booth. They're not using any on-set dialogue, as it were, because there is no live action being recorded. And then there's definitely people monitoring those vocal booth recordings. And so, it's not as though the technology can't do it. So.
Right. Actors used to enunciate with theater precision.
That's right.
And now, because of technology and different kinds of microphones and audio, they're allowed to be more natural.
Yes.
And literally mumble dialogue, if that's.
But I love listening to the voice actor interviews, because it seems as though most voice acting directors for animation, they seem like a certain type of personality. It's like they're all the time. So I love hearing the voice actors talk, because they're like, they give us direction all the time. They're like, act better. Which it's all said in good humor, right?
Yeah.
Do it better. Say it faster and clearer. Come on.
It looks enormously fun to me. That's what
it really does.
Fantasy job for me would be voicing a cartoon of some sort. And I used to do radio skits with strange voices, and it would be so cool.
Continuing on, it's just the pair of Sony tower speakers handling all of the sound right now. Is there a subwoofer we would recommend? This system could honestly use one, and he's only half kidding about that. So, subwoofer recommendations?
Yeah, so here's the thing. It's a stereo receiver from back in that time. If it has a subwoofer output, it's nothing but a summed output from the front, left, right channels, but I'm betting it doesn't have a subwoofer output of any kind, which means you're relying on the speaker wire connections, right? So that, to me, is the thing I would want to look for sure, that any subwoofer I recommend has a speaker wire connection. You're already running those towers full range. I would not worry one iota about continuing to run them full range and then just blending in the subwoofer as best you can with the low-pass filter on the sub itself, but not worrying about trying to apply a high pass filter to the tower speakers. I just continue to run them full range. So this is literally just running speaker wires from the AV receiver to the subwoofer's speaker wire inputs instead, and then daisy chaining from there onto the tower speakers, which are still getting the full range signals. So I'm going to point you to RSL. I think RSL is the right value choice here. Their Speedwoofer 10S Mark II, and if this happens to be a much bigger room where you want a lot more output, the Speedwoofer 12S from RSL as well. But I think a 10S Mark II is the perfect choice here. $500, available in black or white finish, and it has speaker wire inputs on the back.
See, I think you're missing the fun here.
Okay.
You need to get on eBay, not eBay. Get on Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, either one, search for subwoofer. You're going to find a lot that came out of janky cars. You don't want those. But somebody's going to sell a subwoofer or a set of speakers with a subwoofer. That's going to be the fun with this system, is to find, because right now I'm sitting here with a receiver to my right that is a Yamaha, and I'm using a speaker B output. B set of speaker to go to a subwoofer that I could kick with my foot under my desk. And so it's that kind of thing. I got that subwoofer free from a customer I used to have when I was fixing computers back in the day. And that's how I've been, using it forever. I think that would be a lot more fun than just buying a really good one outright. See if you can find a Sony one. See if you can find anything from like the 90s. So
search for M&K, Velodyne, Serwin Vega, right? All of these subwoofers had the high, had speaker line inputs with a high pass output that could go onto the Sony's. Yes. Yeah. I'd find something vintage to go along with the rest
you
of the
get
gear.
something for $100 like that. That would be, that's the fun. Then you got to go find it and get it and go to some sketch neighborhood. You're having fun.
Recone it, recap it. Yeah, it'll be great.
Well, I don't know about that. That's a
so next
too far
question, continuing on, last part. His wife mentioned something or other about needing to schedule an intervention for his AV addiction. That just means she's going to help him find even more gear to add somewhere in the house, right? Any other AVRant listeners have a similar nostalgia setup in a corner of their house, somewhere that they love and continue to use? And then this one is for the kids. After all, they're the ones benefiting from having it around, obviously. Sure they are.
Yes,
right?
It all sounded that way.
Yeah, so I agree that it goes from the theater room to the family room to eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, with most of the gear in our house. So supporting two systems is kind of enough for me, but
right.
Yeah,
My
the
old
older
stuff is
gear.
scattered. Our guest bedroom is the 70s room. I've got a black and white television in there with the antennas sticking up that don't receive anything anymore. And then I have an old GE stereo system that my parents bought in 1974. So I have my stuff scattered. And then I've got, like I said, I got an old laser disc player sitting in here. I've got it all. I need like a cool one old retro setup, but it's kind of the whole house. For that matter, I recently got a 1920s Victrola, so I need to get that restored and working too. I'd like to stick a Bluetooth speaker in it to play stuff as well. So I understand where this guy's coming from. I would feel it too. I need something more focused like he has, because Scott can go to this room in his house and sit there and experience it when it's time to do that.
Yeah, I can't say I have a vintage setup, but yeah, I guess the oldest display I'm running, I'm still using that Sony Z9D because I got to have one big display that can do 3D. So that's about the oldest component. But then I got video game systems still going all the way back to the original PlayStation 1. So I've
got an Atari 2600.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know how much more we can do, but we've got to at least do Chris's this week. So Chris has moved and he is trying to figure out how to set up a home theater in a new room. It's a bit of an unusual shape. If you were to look at the room from overhead, basically, it's like the shape of a plus symbol, kind of.
Oh, wow.
So you could sort of think of it as taking a rectangle overall that is 26 feet from front to back and 32 feet wide, and then basically cut out a 7x7 square from each corner of that to make the plus symbol. So that's sort of the room we're working at. And thankfully, he did send in a diagram. So just taking a quick peek around his room in the photos, and then I'll show you the diagram right after that. So yeah, that's the basic shape we're working with. It's got an 8-foot ceiling, so total it all up, and the internal air volume is close to 5,100 cubic feet. So that's into large room territory, but just barely so. There are double doors on the back wall there, so this is an enclosed space, thankfully. But yeah, if we see that overhead diagram view, then yeah, you see the sort of plus symbol, and it's wider than it is long from front to back. And then you've got basically like the corners cut out of this space. He drew a Venn diagram to make it even that little bit more clear. So he did not specify an exact budget that he's working with, but he did say that cost is an object. He's looking for bang for the buck, best bang for the buck, and he wants to work big to small. So the most money should go to the most important purchases, and if compromises need to be made on lower priority items after that, so be it. So for the time being, he has thrown a 65-inch TCL QM8 series in here. No other speakers just yet. He has on hand a pair of Paradigm Monitor 9 towers and a CC370 center that he does intend to use, at least at the beginning. He also has a Paradigm PDR12 subwoofer and a Denon 3808 CI receiver. So that's going back a ways. He is planning to upgrade those. Seating has not been decided upon just yet. He's put in one chair to look at that TV, another chair beside it, basically. But that is not the final seating whatsoever. The room, when they purchased it, it was pre-wired for 5 speakers by the previous owner, but the in-wall speaker wires were all terminated with banana plug wall plates that are way up high on the walls, close to the ceiling. So there's like one on each back wall, pretty far out to the sides, and then 3 along the front wall. But yeah, they're up high, close to the ceiling.
Yeah.
They were all terminated to a multi-gang wall plate that is on the back wall to the left of the double doors. So, starting off, he's fairly certain that he's going to change over to a 98-inch TCL. He has had a projection set up in the past, so he's familiar with that, and he's going to miss having a 120-inch screen, but all things considered, he's leaning pretty strongly towards a 98-inch flat panel for this setup, and then that, if he decides upon that, that's going to nail down what his seating distance is going to be. So, any thoughts on that? Any strong recommendations for seating that he should consider, even though he's ultimately going to figure that part out for himself? Yeah. Thoughts on that part, guys?
I don't know what to recommend on seating because I'm the guy that flops over on the couch with his head on the armrest. So I don't know about that. But I definitely know I wouldn't be using the speaker terminals at the top next to the ceiling. I'm not using those. So those need to come out.
Or just you can put a blank wall plate there and paint it the same color as the wall. That's the easiest way to deal with that. Joe, are you okay with that plan for the display and seating?
So I don't know. I was talking to my wife the other day. I think I've been in projector category now for 21 years. Go back to an InFocus 7200 was our first one. It's hard for me to get away from projection. I like really big displays. That says theater to me. But there's a lot more involved, right? It is running wires. It is running power and signal up to the ceiling. It is a big display. It is a lot more light control issue. So I understand the allure of the 98-inch.
And this is a big white ceiling that it sounds like he doesn't want to paint a dark color.
Yeah.
He's painting that room, obviously. You can see he's trying colors all over the place.
Yes, we see the swatches.
Yeah, that's a personal decision. It's up to you if you want to go with an 98-inch. I'm not going to bemoan that too much. And as far as the seating go, man, I've tried a lot of seats in my theater. We've tried everything from Cinematech to Fortress to commercial stuff to I've had Premier seats. We've tried a lot. You need to sit in them. You need to try them out. You need to really spend 2 hours with your butt in that seat to see if it's going to be good for watching an entire movie. And then also you need to decide, how's this room going to be used, right? Is this just a theater? Is this a multi-purpose room? What else are you going to be doing in there? Does a couch make sense? Are you going to try and sneak in there to take naps when no one can find you? In that case, you need a couch, right? So it really depends on what decision you want to make. Not only with that screen, but also with how you're going to use the seating, how many you want to seat. If it's 2 rows, are you going to build a riser? It's just, there's a lot involved, and that's particular to everyone's own individual situation.
So since Tom isn't here, but I know that he would absolutely make a point of saying this, he's not a fan of like the dedicated home theater recliners. It's just not his personal preference. So he always says, go to one of your local or more than one of your local furniture stores. They ones that sell sectionals. Just keep in mind, you don't have to go with the floor design that's on display. They all have a catalog for any sectional sofas. You can order the pieces individually to get exactly the shape and configuration that you want. Make sure it's a nice, comfy sectional that comes in the color and the finish and the size and the comfort that you want, and then order the specific pieces to make the shape exactly the way that you want it to be. And yes, I like that advice. And then I just wanted to mention, if you're just like, I want to order some dedicated theater recliner style seats online for a really great bang for the buck price, I always like to remind people and point them to HT Market. I remain a big fan of theirs. I think the value that they have on the pricing for the seats that they offer is really, really good. I like that the controls for these motorized recliners, all of the controls are on the cup holder on the top, so there's no reaching down the side or in between seat cushions. You just go right to the cup holder and all of your controls are right there. And lots of fancy features that you can get at a very reasonable price at HT Market. So I like to just mention that that's an option as far as seating goes. All right. So where to even begin when it comes to room treatments? He's like, should room treatments be a major priority in this room, or would the money be better spent elsewhere in addressing the final acoustics of this setup? I have no question in my mind that it is worth focusing on acoustic treatments in this room.
I agree. I mean, look at absorption, especially in the room like this. This looks like an upstairs room. I do think, getting wall panels, especially, where you're going to make the most impact, are really going to bring the most out of no matter what other equipment you choose, right? So the room is your biggest factor in determining sound quality. So getting a room that, you can control the amount of decay, reverberation time, things like that, is really going to allow whatever speakers or other gear you put in there to get the best out of those.
So I'm going to say some advice that honestly, I don't know if the folks at Harman who have literally written the books on room acoustics and that would fully agree with me. But this is a scenario where, because of this slightly unusual shape to this room and because of how the sides of this room, they basically have these portions that jut out farther to the sides, which gives you, additional corners to deal with. It gives you additional places where, this is fluid dynamics. The way sound works in air is literally fluid dynamics. And when you have bends and turns and 90-degree angles and stuff going on, you literally get eddies. You literally get little swirling patches of air as they go around corners or hit corners, and that's going to be happening on the sidewalls in this room. So I'm of the opinion, based on that this is a room where I would would want sidewall treatment.
Yes.
But same advice as anytime I have sidewall treatment. I don't just want to throw some 1-inch or 2-inch panels up on my sidewalls and call it a day, because all that impacts are higher frequencies. I want broadband, wide frequency range absorption, which means some fairly thick panels. Now, thankfully, this is a pretty big room, and the sides of this room are expanding out pretty far beyond like the comfortable viewing area for the 98-inch screen that's going to be going in here. So I don't think it's a big problem for me to say like some 6-inch, maybe even 8-inch in total, not necessarily all insulation, but like 6 inches of insulation with a 2-inch air gap or something like that. If you want fantastic bang for the buck, I'm going to say go to Acoustimac and get some of their 6-inch thick kits, because the price is way lower for the kit that you assemble yourself, but you get the 6-inch kits. And I'm going to say like, what is the forward facing part of the walls, but like over to the left and right? Like,
exactly. That's
there's
what I was
kind of
thinking.
nothing there. And I want that section treated. I'm going to be a little bit less worried if we put a fairly large amount of thick panels into the sides of this room. I'm a little bit less worried about like corner bass trapping, because you're essentially going to be filling in, like not literally, but you're going to be treating with broadband thick absorption a lot of that sidewall section that's like extending out into where the windows are at the sides of this room. So that's my advice here. I'm a little less worried about front and back wall treatment. Not that I wouldn't, but like up at the front, we've got 2 big windows, so there's not a huge amount of area to put panels there, unless that's all just going to be covered with a curtain anyway, and you can basically have freestanding panels on the front wall. The back of this room, where if the seating is going to be approximately where the temp seating is right now, like you're not having really strong reflections from a wall that's really close to the back of your seats. You're going to have a decent amount of space behind here. And then you've got full wall-to-wall carpeting, so like I'm really not worried about high frequencies. Those are probably already reasonably okay in here. The last question to me is like, do we do something on this ceiling? Because this isn't a super high ceiling, but it is a big flat surface up there, and it is going to be sending reflections. So even if it's just kind of spot treatment on the ceiling there, I wouldn't mind having some like, first reflection treatment, maybe a sort of a row of panels that's going along first reflection point on the ceiling up there. They can be white to match the ceiling. Like I'd try for 4 inches thick. That's sometimes a challenge with just an 8-foot ceiling. But yeah, that'd be my plan for acoustically treating this room.
Like over where you're sitting, right? Like right in the middle?
So like basically halfway between your seats and the display and the center speaker. Yeah.
Right.
On those side windows, I do like the curtain suggestion, and the front windows too, but, go with a heavy double layered, potentially lots of pleats to those curtains. So lots of surface area, and that can really help. And you can also put those off the wall enough to hide some of the acoustic low frequency bass absorption below those, right? So you could put 6-8 inch thick panels below each of those windows, and then just put the drapes far enough off where it's hiding all of that, because you're going to want to keep that room dark if you're doing it as a theater anyways.
Yeah, to me, this is more a case of like while we say, hey, try to get 10% of the room's total surface area covered in bass trap, try to have 15% total surface area as kind of a minimum, 30% total surface area as kind of a maximum. Like to me, it's a little bit less important to worry about surface area than it is whatever panels you have in here are the right panels for this setting, which is thick. Like, sorry to say it, but it's thick, right? I'd rather have fewer thick panels placed in this room than cover 30% of the surface area, but it's all in thin treatment. That's not what I want to go for here. I don't want to kill all the high frequency detail and then still have crossover region problems, right? Like I want to go for thick panels and basically like, fill in those sides, cover the front wall with freestanding, cover that over with a nice thick pleated curtain, and that'd be my approach for this. So he was figuring he'd go for a dual subwoofer setup, probably underneath those windows on the side walls. So basically the midpoints of each side wall. Any reason to think that that placement wouldn't work in this room just because it's this plush shape, and any strong feelings about which subwoofers to get? Is there a scenario where it would make sense to continue using the single paradigm PDR12 that he already has on hand in combination with a totally different brand and model of subwoofer? Thoughts on that part?
It feels chaotic with the cross shape of the room. I don't know what to expect when it comes to bass notes swirling around in there, what kind of nulls and things might happen.
You
I don't
still
know.
do have just like parallel surfaces though, and no matter what, across the room rather than both subwoofers up front or both subwoofers on the back. Like you always want to cross the room from each other. It makes sense. You've got the space to spare. I don't see any reason that I wouldn't choose the midpoints of the two sidewalls as my first choice to at least try. If you run into major problems, yes, we're going to make a change, but I think that's a logical place to try. Joe, would you sell the PDR12 and get 2 new subs?
Yeah, I would go with 4 new subs. In a room this big, you're going to want some stronger impact. I would be looking at 4 good quality subs, something like an SVS 2000 at least, to try and get the kind of impact and even seat to seat bass.
Yeah, so I mean, he was saying bang for the buck. So I think the least expensive, smallest subs that I would recommend would be the RSL Speedwoofer 12S. That, like, to me, that's the bare minimum, and it is not getting you to reference volume. It's not getting you to cinema reference volume. A pair of those in this room size, but if you're not listening at even close to cinema reference volume, as many people are not, this could be sort of the minimum. For bang for buck, I would have you looking at HSU. I still think, especially right now that a lot of the prices have gone up on other subwoofer brands, I think HSU is offering, tremendous bang for the buck. VTF3 Mark V HPs, that's going to be some really, really good bang for the buck. The TN1, which is out of stock right now, but going to be back in stock at the end of April, that could be a good choice if you'd rather have more height with a smaller footprint. So I think those are the bang for buck choices that I'd point you to. He doesn't have any surround or surround back speakers on hand right now. What should he get? Do we have a recommendation for a wall mounting bracket? And where should any surround back speakers go exactly? Because the positioning of the double doors make it so that he could add a single surround back center, like a 6.2.4 configuration instead of 7.2.4, but where else could surround back speakers go? I'll just hop in and say I don't see any reason why I wouldn't get some Paradigm bookshelf speakers that match your Monitor series towers and center, because the Paradigm Monitor SE Atom for $400 a pair are pretty darn good, surprisingly efficient, which is important in this room because they're going to be a good distance away from you, so you want sort of a lot of decibels per watt coming out of them. But the Monitor series is a surprisingly efficient series of speakers from Paradigm. Yeah, $400 a pair, you really can't go wrong. So I don't see much reason to point you anything other than that. Different thought on that, Joe?
I want something with more output. If you're going to be, you're going to be sitting pretty far away from them. You need something that can handle a lot of power. So I'd be, looking for something maybe a little bit larger than that Paradigm driver, but.
So maybe say I don't know if even the dual woofer RSLs, because those are 4.5 inch drivers, so that's basically just equaling a single 6 inch. So maybe not the single driver what am I trying to think of here, the Impression series, right? From RBH, not the single woofer one, but the dual woofer. Yeah, the dual woofer one. I mean, the price is going up significantly, but they have considerably high power handling.
But you're in a big room that you're going to need to be able to. You're sitting far enough away from those that if you want to get anywhere close to playback at reference level, it's going to need to have a lot of power. Yeah,
that's fair enough.
I'm wondering where surrounds and rear surrounds get mounted, though. Where do we put them in this odd shape?
Right.
Because for surrounds, they should be a little bit behind you, a little bit above you, pointing at the listening area, right?
I was thinking that for the actual surrounds, I would put them on stands. Because otherwise they need to go right on the sidewall windows, and there's not really a convenient place. You're going to have your subwoofers there on the sidewalls. I'd put some stands, just behind the subwoofers on the sidewalls. Okay. And then for the rear ones, I'm not seeing a big reason. They'd be a little bit wide apart. But there's this section of the room, right, that's not the literal back wall where the double doors are, but the section towards the corners. They'd be close. They'd be close to those corners.
The back of the middle section is what you mean.
Yeah. So they are fully behind you. They're a little bit wider apart than ideal, but we got to live in the real world here and work around the constraints of this room. So, the speaker mounts, that'll work no matter which bookshelf speakers you get. I'm going to point you to, first of all, I'm really glad that I found these adjustable speaker stands from Kanto. So they're a couple $100 for the pair. They're not the cheapest thing, but they're nice quality stands that can handle some bookshelf stands and get them up high enough for surround speaker duty. So I'd stand those in front of those sidewall windows for your surrounds. And then from Mount It, they have the side clamping, fully pivotable, fully swivelable wall mounts for the surround backs. And that's going to work no matter which bookshelf speakers you get because they can hold 55 pounds. So even if you go with the dual driver RBH Impression series, they're able to handle that weight.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll second that on that mount. I've used those on my front wide speakers when I was first playing with them. Yeah.
So, yes, does an Atmos setup make any sense in this room? And if so, which Atmos speakers should he get to go in his ceiling? We also should note, it looks like he has like full attic access directly in this room. It's what it appears to be with that hatch up there. So I think even ceiling speakers make sense. I don't see any reason he can't do 4 ceiling speakers in here. I think that totally makes, and it looks like it's an attic that's above him, not like somebody's bedroom. So
yeah, you could go 6 speakers if you have the receiver for it. You got a lot of room in here. Definitely make that work.
I don't know if I'd call a receiver that does that like maximum bang for the buck, though. I think 4 ceiling speakers properly placed makes sense. So yeah, to go along with Paradigms, I don't have any problem going to my go-to, the Sonance Mag 6 that you can get from Best Buy for $160 a pair. I think that's tremendous bang for the buck. Everything in the Mag 6 is aimable. The tweeter is independently aimable, but the woofer is also aimable, which I really like. So if you want to angle your in-ceiling speakers, you can do that without like having to actually angle the mount. And then even though it's going to, well, actually, especially because it's in the attic where usually fire code demands it, you get the backer boxes, which are another $60 for the pair for the back cans that go on those Sonance Mag 6R. So that's the way I would go. So lastly, which AV receiver to handle on all of this? Any strong feelings on that, Joe?
I do like the suggestion I see here on screen, that Denon 3800H. I've used a ton of that receiver. It's a great piece. It's got really good processing in it, a lot of capabilities. If you want to do, 7.1.4, no problem. I'm not sure if you can do a single back speaker with that one. It's been a while since I've tried that.
It has the option for a single surround. I wouldn't, though. I just have
I agree. I agree 100%. But if you do end up with 7.2.4,
you will need to add a 2-channel amplifier to this one. But I would just get a Fosse. I'd get a Fosse Class D amplifier, add the extra 2 channels, power your top top rear speakers, overhead speakers or something, and it won't be any problem at all. So I'm showing the link from Accessories for Less because that's the lowest price. You can get it for $1,400. If you're buying it brand new, it's going for $1,800. I do think that's the top bang for the buck. If you want to pay more, you can add Dirac Live correction to this. It comes with Odyssey Multi-Q XT32, the highest consumer version of Odyssey that comes packaged in. But if you want to add Dirac, you can. And it can go all the way up to Dirac Art, the maximum processing that Dirac has available. So the X3800H can do that. If you're just like, I 100% want all 11 amplifiers built into the AV receiver, if that's just a demand of yours, the least expensive one I would feel good about pointing you to is Onkyo's RZ70, going for $2,300. They don't have any stock available of it at Accessories for Less at a reduced price right now. So that's quite a bit more, compared to even $1,800. But this does come with Dirac as its default room correction program. It can be upgraded to Dirac Live bass control, but the Onkyo RZ70 cannot be upgraded to Dirac Art. So that is a limitation there. However, there are brand new whole series of AV receivers about to come out from Onkyo. So if you wanted to wait for those, the price will be higher, but the brand new ones that haven't released yet, those can go all the way up to Dirac Live Art if you want to.
And if you do go with the 4 subwoofers, that Denon does have 4 independent subwoofer outputs, right. So it'd be easy to configure.
Yeah,
nice.
My leaning is to the Denon X3800H. I think that is the max bang for the buck to go for in this room. There we go. So we're at like 2.5 hours. Do we want to stop here for this week, guys? Does anyone have strong feelings about any of the future questions?
I don't know, man. The enchiladas might start hitting any second now.
Yeah.
I would love to hit question 8 if we have time.
Well, why don't we jump right to that? And Joe, why don't you read that off for us? Yeah.
So Gary is using a Marantz Cinema 60 receiver. He's running a 7.1 speaker setup in a basement home theater that is roughly 14.5 wide by 21.5 long, less than 7 feet high. Mm-hmm. He hasn't really been using them, but he still has 2 of the Marantz MM8077 7-channel amplifiers on hand. He was using them in a previous setup. A little while ago, his Cinema 60 receiver went into protection mode. He tried switching over to both of his MM8077 amplifiers, and they both went into protection mode also. So it took him quite a while to track down the culprit, but he ultimately found that his former front right speaker was the problem. No longer part of the system then. He replaced his front left and right speakers with a pair of monoprice Audition Series T4 towers, and with all 7 speakers being powered by the Cinema 60 receiver, it was all working fine again. He did note that the monoprice T4 towers are listed as having a 4 ohm nominal impedance, which his previous front speakers were listed as 8 ohm, but the Cinema 60 wasn't having any problems, so he carried on his merry way. At some point, he decided to try using one of the MM8077 amplifiers again, just to hear if it would make any difference at all, and the thing went into protection mode again. The Cinema 60 receiver did not, and never has since the change of speakers, but the MM8077 amp itself went into protection mode. So he switched over to his other MM8077 amp, and it also went into protection mode. He went ahead and checked with Marant's technical support, and they said those amps should be able to power those speakers no problem. Doubt it. They did say it was possible to reach their limits in insanely high volume levels, but that is not the case here at all. The manual says to connect speakers with an impedance from 6 to 8 ohms, but Marant's own tech support said that his 4 ohm front tower speakers should be fine and no problem. Then he checked the online forums, and now he's all confused. They said they said to make sure his Cinema 60 is set to 8 ohms no matter what, even though his speakers are 4 ohms. He actually tried both settings and never heard any difference at all. And the receiver has never gone into protection mode again, no matter the impedance setting. So what gives? Does it matter which impedance setting is used in the Cinema 60 receiver? So let's stop right there. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Okay, we got to be a little bit careful here, right? Because the reason that 4 ohm setting exists is safety standards. It is like a industry safety standard protocol. That's why the setting even exists. But it is just a choke. It is literally a choke on the electrical power that can come out of the output transistors on every speaker amplifier. And so if you're just taking measurements of it, the amount, like the maximum wattage that can come out when you set it to the 4 ohm setting is just straight up lower than the maximum wattage that can come out of the AV receiver speaker outputs if you set it to 8 ohms. So like, what I'll say is this: if you go and look at the lengthy and detailed and engineering-based articles that Audioholics has posted on this, they say if you want to achieve the maximum wattage that this AV receiver is entirely capable of outputting to your 4 ohm speakers, you leave the AV receiver itself set to the 8 ohm output setting. So I'll just put it that way. I'll put it onto Audioholics' shoulders to handle any legal ramifications of that. But I'll just say I agree with what they've said there, and there is no arguing with the objective measurement of they're just putting a choke on how much wattage comes out when you use the 4 ohm setting. But that's all to keep the amount of heat down.
Yeah, it's a current issue. Whether if you set it to 4 ohm settings, it's not going to allow as much power to pass through it for its own protection, which makes sense. But you're saying it's not shutting down, it's not overheating, it's not having a problem. I'd make sure you keep that Cinema 60 very well ventilated, maybe put a fan on top of that. But I don't see it being a big problem if you're not running into one so far. Continuing his question, are his 4 ohm monoprice towers causing his MM8077 amps to go into protection mode? Well, I think you answered that yourself. Yes, it is.
Obviously.
If you were to sell his MM8077 amps, are they going to be a problem for the next person? What would AVRant do? Oh, it's on us now.
I would sell them. They're not malfunctioning necessarily.
Well, so I mean, look, I know what Tom would say. I know what I would say, which is, I don't think it's the speakers anymore because you've had them connected to your AV receiver and you're having no problems. It could be the amplifiers themselves. Like they might just have an internal fault in them at this point, and they're no matter what speakers you connected them, they'd find themselves going to protection mode. There could just be an internal fault. But
both of them?
I think all along there's been a speaker wire problem. I think that has been the problem all along. Is that because that is almost always why any amplifier or AV receiver goes into protection mode, is because not in anything, I'm not saying you were careless when you connected your speaker wires, anything like that. One tiny little, smaller than a hair strand of copper that didn't go into the binding post, or if you're using banana plug terminations, you inserted the end of your speaker wire into your whatever terminal you're using, and one little strand, it found its way out exposed, and you can't see it. Maybe you're literally looking over the back of your amplifiers as you're connecting these speaker wires, but one little strand made its way, and it's just enough that when the heat is applied and the amplifier is running, it just bends enough to create a little electrical arc, and poof, it's a literal short circuit, and it goes into protection mode. It is almost always the cause of every protection mode instance is a stray strand of speaker wire, and this is a great time to clip off the old ends of your speaker wire, re-terminate them, and if there isn't a fault inherently inside of these Marantz amplifiers, then it's a speaker wire problem.
You gave me this same speech years back when I told you about watching Interstellar and shutting the system down, and you're like, I'm not suggesting you did anything wrong, but
so I'm really familiar with these amplifiers.
Okay.
I ran a dual MM8077 setup in my theater for years.
Okay.
If you look at, I know you talked to technical support, but that guy may have been working at McDonald's the week before. So I would look at the manual, which clearly states rated output power, 20 to 20 kilohertz, 2 channels driven is 150 watts per channel into 8 ohms, 180 watts channels into 6 ohms. It does not have a 4 ohm rating whatsoever in that manual, and you're not getting very much more power by going from an 8 ohm to a 6 ohm, which a 30 watt increase, that's like what, 20%. So I don't know for a fact whether or not those amplifiers are stable into 4 ohms. If I was going to sell these amplifiers, what I would do is hook them up to 7 8-ohm speakers, make sure all the channels work as intended, and then sell it without a problem. It's
Sure.
If you're doing what it's rated for, then it's doing that without an issue, not a problem. Keep in mind, those amplifiers do have internal fans, and as they get older, you may have picked up dust, debris, dirt. You may not have a fan working properly inside those amplifiers, especially if they were rack mounted and you didn't have good ventilation for them, because that kills electronics all the time. So there may be minor issues. That's not a hard amplifier to open up and hit it with some compressed air, clean it out, make sure everything is working as intended. If they get warm, make sure you can feel the amplifier's fans coming on with those. But those are really well built amplifiers. They are on the exact same chassis as the previous version of that amplifier. That was an 8-channel one, and I don't think they changed the power supplies when they went to a 7-channel version. There's a pretty good teardown video on YouTube that's interesting to watch, where they actually break that thing down to its component parts. Those were nice amplifiers, but they were a Japanese build for an 8-ohm load, right? So it's it's intended for that use case.
But I was going to mention that, like, if it isn't a speaker wire issue, it is very often a little bit of lint, a little bit of spider silk, a little bit of any kind of debris, not necessarily on the outside of the speaker binding post, but inside the chassis. Those speaker binding posts continue inside, and like anything that can conduct electricity, which, as we've talked about in the past, could be part of a banana, right? Like anything that can conduct electricity that creates any short circuit signal path can cause protection modes. So cleaning your amplifiers like internally is definitely a good idea. And what Joe mentioned, that sparked something else. Like, it could be a fan fault, right? Like literally one of those fans just isn't spinning up, and it's like, oh, I got to go in protection mode. Like, it doesn't actually need to go into protection mode yet, but it's just a fail safe if one of those fans fails to spin on like the test boot. Like, did my fan spin? No, it didn't. I'm going into protection mode. And so it could be something as simple as that. So opening it up and a little cleaning could be a wonder.
But I do think the newer, the Cinema 60 that you're talking about, and if you look at the newer the AMP 10, AMP 20, AMP 30, the newer ones they're coming out with from Marantz, they do very clearly rate those at 4 ohms, right? So those are a Class D amplifier. These were old Class A, B designs. So they've changed a lot in how they're engineering current electronics.
It's just really rare that normal consumer speakers, even if they're rated at 4 ohms nominal, like shut down an amplifier of the quality of an MM87. It's like there's a short happening somewhere. I'm nearly convinced of it.
So check your speaker cables.
Yes.
Check that it's clean.
Yes.
Check for bugs and spiders in there. And then if you want to sell them, test them with 8 ohm speakers. And if they all work well, you're good to go. Is that fair? There you go.
Yep. Absolutely. So from there, I think we will continue with Mace and Jason are on the list. Wanted to make sure I mentioned your names. I don't think I had any others that I didn't write up yet, but something might have just come in on Tuesday morning or something along those lines. But Mace and Jason, you're going to be up first next week with Tom and myself. Tom will be back and I'll be here. So there we go. There'll be another episode of AVRant. So scrolling back to the top, I want to re-thank our listeners of the week, folks who supported this podcast in some way. You can go to patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you want to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 119 patrons over there. And then thanks to Steve, Adam, Leighton, Chris, Scott, and Jason for the notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going. Big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions. You can do that at question@avrant.com, our email address. It's by far the best way to get in touch with us. So send your questions or just anything you want to say to us to question@avrant.com. So big thank you to Lee Overstreet and Joe Klusnick. Thanks for coming back and co-hosting with me, guys.
No problem.
My pleasure.
Always fun.
And be sure to check out that panel that Joe is going to be a part of live on Thursday. That's going to be fun. And you can shoot me a link and we'll update the show notes and whatnot so that people can find that. All right.
Will do.
Anything else before we go?
Nope. Thanks for bringing us on again. Have fun.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, then I'll say on behalf of Tom Andry, this has been AVRant. I am Rob H.
I'm Lee Overstreet.
I'm Joe Klusnick.
Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.